Slices of pork belly and a slab of aged kimchi sizzled on the hot pan, fat popping as Kang Hyun calmly turned the meat over the blue camping flame. Kang Hyun grinned under the wide hat, proud of his grill work and already thrilled at the thought of eating rich pork belly with well-aged kimchi. He snapped open a cold can of soda, foam bubbling over the rim as the sharp hiss cut through the quiet air. Kang Hyun tilted his head back and drank in long gulps, the cold sweetness washing down the heat and smoke from the grill. He clenched his fist and laughed to himself, feeling so refreshed that he decided even storm clouds could not ruin a drink this good. Kang Hyun paused mid-sip, turning toward the trees as loud, friendly voices called his name from the distance. The camper smiled, glad he had piled the grill high, already guessing that his quiet spot was about to turn into a crowded campsite. A burly warrior pushed through the trees with a booming greeting, waving wide as he marched straight toward Kang Hyun's campsite. The wolf warrior strode out of the trees, tall and calm, sizing up Kang Hyun's little camp with a steady gaze. The wolf child burst past the warrior on all fours, eyes locked on the grill as they scrambled forward, desperate to reach the food first. An old traveler shuffled along the path with his staff, peering ahead and noting that there was something new waiting in the clearing. Emily stepped out beside her spirit bird with a warm smile, telling Kang Hyun she was sorry for barging in on his quiet rest. The valley spread out under a clear blue sky, and Kang Hyun's crowded little campsite sat like a tiny dot in the middle of all that bright, untouched wilderness. Far away, gentle wind rolled over a green hillside above the countryside, where farms and small houses lay spread out in calm rows below. A black car rolled to a stop beside an old two-story building, and Kang Hyun stepped out, looking up at the place his grandfather once ran. Leaning against the car door, Kang Hyun studied the worn walls and quietly admitted that the old store still had a surprisingly good feel to it. Kang Hyun hunched low in the back seat, face covered, while the manager held the door and reminded him to make sure no one was around before stepping out. The manager waved it off, saying no paparazzi would bother chasing him all the way out here, but Kang Hyun still clung to the car door, nerves buzzing around him. Feeling a bit safer, Kang Hyun reached up and slowly tugged his mask down. Kang Hyun glanced around with his mask hanging at his chin, thinking that anyone who saw him sneaking around like this would probably say he was acting like one of those people who think they are famous when they are just normal. In his mind, he called it a kind of celebrity disease, where a guy thinks he is a star even though he is just some regular dude. Still, as he stood in front of the shuttered doors with his suitcase in hand, Kang Hyun knew that wherever he went these days, plenty of people actually did know who he was. He remembered standing under harsh stage lights in his chef whites, thinking how graduating from one of the top cooking schools and winning a huge contest had pushed him into the spotlight. On that stage with the trophy in his hand, the young chef listened to people praise him as a rising talent, saying that with skill like his, Chef Kang Hyun's future could only go up from here. In the middle of service, a fan suddenly stepped right into the kitchen and shoved her phone at Kang Hyun, begging for a picture. He flinched back, caught between hot pans and a stranger who treated his workplace like a stage. The chef lost his patience and pushed her toward the door, barking that this was a kitchen and she needed to leave. In that second, all he cared about was keeping the line moving and stopping anyone from getting hurt. Later, other chefs rounded on Kang Hyun, saying the fan only rushed in because of him and that everyone's work was suffering for it. One of them jabbed a finger at his chest, accusing him of looking down on real cooks and sneering that he should have just chased fame instead of calling himself a chef. Not long after, comments started flooding in online, saying his cooking was nothing special and that he only got famous because of his looks. People called him rude, claimed he screamed at fans like a crazy person, and even insisted his restaurant food was just average at best. Kang Hyun stared at the glowing screen, his eye fixed and empty as each new line of hate burned itself into his mind. An article sat at the top of the page, asking what people should believe and calling him a fake star chef made by the media. It even quoted a well-known chef who used to be close to him, claiming to reveal the truth about Kang Hyun. Later, in a room littered with clothes and dishes, Kang Hyun sat on the edge of his bed with his head in his hand, phone dangling. He was done with the noise and the stares. All that attention now felt like a weight he could not carry anymore. Back in the quiet warehouse, his manager tried one last time to talk him out of this move, saying a place like this would never pay well. Kang Hyun just rolled his suitcase farther inside, thinking that was perfect because he had come here for one thing only, to finally rest. As they moved deeper into the empty place, Kang Hyun dragged his suitcase like this was a vacation, not a job. His manager trudged behind with the boxes, grumbling that people who want to rest do not start businesses and that Kang Hyun was flat out obsessed with cooking. With the boxes of kitchen gear still half open, the manager suggested they grab food before unpacking, saying he was starving. Since this rundown spot could not deliver anything, he told Kang Hyun they would have to head out to eat. They ended up at a small place nearby, where a bowl of dark, sticky noodles and a few tired side dishes landed on the table, already giving off a bad feeling to a chef's eye. Kang Hyun lifted his chopsticks and froze, eyes bulging as he took in what was on his plate, already bracing himself for how bad it might be. He still wrapped the noodles around his chopsticks and shoved them into his mouth, chewing with a dark look while the manager watched, waiting to see just how bad it really was. The taste hit and Kang Hyun snapped, rising with a dark fury that made the air feel heavy as he demanded someone call the person in charge, shocked that anyone expected people to eat this. His manager grabbed his shoulder and urged him to calm down and put the utensil down before he caused a real problem. To check if it was really that bad, the manager slurped up a mouthful himself, then admitted the sauce seemed okay to him, though he sounded unsure even as he said it. Kang Hyun lowered his gaze, doubt tightening around his eyes as he wondered if the problem was really the food or his broken tongue all over again. Kang Hyun propped his chin on his hand, staring past the table as it hit him that the noodles were just empty in his mouth. Across from him, his manager watched quietly, sensing that this was not about one bad dish. In his head, a plate hit the floor and burst apart, just like the career he had built around taste. He remembered standing in the kitchen in full uniform, sweat running down his arms as he grabbed his mouth, tasting nothing and feeling pure fear for the first time. Later in a quiet office, the doctor told Kang Hyun that his problem came from his mind, not his tongue, and that no surgery could promise to fix it, urging him to deal with his crushing stress instead. The doctor went on to suggest that he pick up a simple hobby, something far from work, while Kang Hyun sat there with empty eyes, not even sure what rest was supposed to look like. Back at the table, the manager set his chopsticks down and admitted he was worried, saying this spot felt too empty and he could not see how they would even get customers. He lifted his chopsticks and looked at Kang Hyun, repeating that this place had nothing going on and asking if he was truly fine staking his future on it. Kang Hyun finally spoke, saying that having nothing but mountains and fields sounded perfect, because out here he might finally be able to breathe. Kang Hyun slumped back in his chair and admitted that what he really wanted was to camp out in the mountains and fields, far away from everything. Soon after, a car carried him along a narrow road wrapped in tall trees, the city already far behind him. In the back seat, Kang Hyun sat in his loud flower shirt and went over his gear in his head, from the mini stove and knife to sunscreen, compass, and map. The driver glanced at him in the mirror and asked if he was heading to the sea, but Kang Hyun calmly answered that he was going up the mountain to camp instead. The driver laughed at his bright shirt and shorts, saying he looked ready for the beach and even asking why he had not packed a float, while Kang Hyun briefly wondered if that was actually something he needed. Kang Hyun blinked behind his shades as it hit him that the driver was telling him to use his head, not to buy more beach toys. Leaning forward, Kang Hyun asked the driver to take him to Yongpyeong village, adding that it was not the kind of place that even sold tubes and that he just needed to stop by there. The car rolled into Yongpyeong village, a small place tucked between green hills and old trees, calm enough to feel like the world had finally gone quiet. Kang Hyun stepped into the yard with all his camping gear, looking around the quiet house that would be his hideout. His hiking shoe pressed into the dusty ground, like he was finally setting down a heavy load. Kang Hyun studied the worn porch and yard, and decided he should tidy up the house before heading into the mountains. As he turned, Kang Hyun's eyes landed on the small shed tucked at the edge of the yard. The storage door was cracked open, darkness pooling inside, and he frowned, sure he had not left it like that. The chef crept inside, clutching his stainless camping bag like a club and bracing himself to jump whoever might be hiding there. A jolt of panic hit him and he shot back out of the shed, heart pounding and gripped tight on the bag. Kang Hyun froze when he spotted the real culprit in the grass, a tiny cat-like ball of fluff meowing at him, and all that fear melted into shaky relief. Kang Hyun looked down at the little cat and muttered that it should be glad it was just an animal, with no worries about work or fame. The chef stepped back into the dusty shed, grumbling that with no one taking care of this place, even wild animals could stroll in, and he patted the wall, trying to find the light switch. Kang Hyun paused with his hand halfway up the wall, a chill running down his back as he realized something about this place felt wrong. A soft breeze brushed his neck as tiny lights drifted past his ear, nothing like the stale air of an old shed. Kang Hyun lifted his head, startled, wondering how there could be wind and drifting lights inside a closed shed. His eye widened as a whole swirl of stars and light filled his vision, and his brain could only ask what on earth he was looking at. The camper stood on a jagged ledge, staring into a dark, star-filled void where chunks of rock floated like islands, realizing this was no simple storage room anymore. As he shifted his weight for a closer look, the stone under his boot cracked and crumbled, sending his foot sliding toward the empty space. Kang Hyun plunged forward, eyes rolling back as he reached out in blind panic, a raw cry tearing out of him. The chef spun helplessly through a river of stars, stammering half words as the glowing vortex dragged him toward a blinding point of light. Kang Hyun blinked up at the sky, a bead of sweat on his cheek, trying to figure out where he had ended up. He lay in the middle of a forest painted in impossible colors, asking himself if he had somehow crossed into another world. A warm, tiny tongue brushed his finger, the soft tickle snapping him out of his daze as he realized something was right beside him. Kang Hyun shot to his feet with a sharp gasp, clutching his hand as his heart hammered from the surprise. In front of him sat a chubby, bright-eyed critter that looked like a squirrel, except for the huge ears that made it feel more like some fantasy pet than any animal he knew. Then the little thing sprang up, its long ears spreading like wings as it glided over Kang Hyun's head, proving this place followed its own rules. Kang Hyun watched the odd gliding animal flap away into the bright sky, already feeling like this world was way above his comfort level. A chill ran down Kang Hyun's back and he stiffened, dreading whatever strange thing was coming next. He relaxed a little when he saw only a tiny white rabbit poking out of the grass, thinking maybe the fans of cute animals in this world had it easy. Then the rabbit rose up, stretching into a huge white beast packed with muscle, and Kang Hyun felt like he had just met a monster with maxed out stats. The white beast lunged forward in a blur, and Kang Hyun snapped out of his daze, realizing he needed to get out of this place fast. He spun around and sprinted through the trees, yelling that this world was way too dangerous and demanding to know where the exit was. By the time darkness settled in, Kang Hyun collapsed on the path, panting hard as it hit him that there were no people here and not even a phone signal to call for help. He remembered the smiling doctor who had lightly suggested camping as a way to rest, and Kang Hyun now stared ahead, sweating, thinking this felt a lot more like being lost in another world than a healing trip. Kang Hyun's stomach growled hard, reminding him that he had not eaten anything since he landed in this strange place. He dug through his camping bag with a tired face, thinking that even in a mess like this, his hunger would not wait. After some work, he at least had a steady fire going, its light pushing back the dark forest around him. Kang Hyun stared at the flames with folded arms, thinking that getting the fire started was one thing, but finding something to cook on it was the real problem. On the ground, he laid out his meager supplies, just a small pack of dried food with a bit of oil and seasoning beside it. The words about his stainless classic camping bag floated through his mind, and sweat rolled down his cheek as he remembered that almost all his real food and tools had been in that one bag. At least he still had these few dried pieces. So the chef sat over his little stove and dropped them into the pot, planning to soak and soften them before turning them into something he could actually eat. Golden liquid and the dried slices flowed into the hot pot, hissing as they met the flame and began to turn into a real meal. The dried pieces now floated in a glossy broth, soaked with oil and sauce as they gently simmered, looking almost like a proper dish. Kang Hyun stared at the pan and figured that with a bit of salt and pepper, it would at least be something he could force down. The chef lifted a few slices with his chopsticks, thinking bitterly that calling this cooking was a stretch for someone who once lived in top kitchens. He brought the limp pieces to his mouth, thinking that the old him would have spat this out right away, but tonight he just needed something to fill his stomach. He sat in front of the fire, the warmth on his back doing nothing to hide the truth that the food had been completely tasteless, just like everything else since he lost his tongue for flavor. Curled up by the campfire, Kang Hyun hugged his knees and cursed softly, hating that even out here in the wild, far from studios and critics, he still could not taste the one thing that once defined him. His face sank into his folded arms, eyes shining in the firelight as the weight of losing his sense of taste pressed down harder than the darkness around him. Then Kang Hyun jerked upright, heart jumping as he threw up a hand, snapped out of his misery by something moving in the dark. Kang Hyun lay frozen as yellow lights slowly appeared in the dark around him, one after another. It felt like a ring of eyes closing in on easy prey. Deep in the bushes, a pair of bright eyes glared out, fixed on Kang Hyun with a hungry focus that made the night feel even tighter. Kang Hyun stumbled back with his heart racing, spotting his little camping knife and clawing for it like it was the only thing between him and a pack of wolves. His fingers closed around the red pocket knife, and he flipped the small blade out, already cursing how little this toy could really do. The bushes exploded as a huge wolf shoved its head through, jaws stretched wide to show rows of sharp teeth, and a throat big enough to swallow his whole arm. Kang Hyun let out a raw shout and threw his arm up, driving the tiny knife down toward the charging wolf with all the strength his shaking body could muster. His arm stalled in the air, the knife still raised as his whole body trembled, fear crashing over him harder than any plan to act brave. In his head, Kang Hyun pictured himself staring at the little blade, half glaring and half cringing, wondering what on earth he thought he could do against a wolf with something this tiny. Kang Hyun stayed frozen by the fire, slowly noticing that the glowing eyes and heavy growls had vanished from the dark. He held his breath and listened, ears straining for even a single step or growl in the grass. Instead of a huge beast, a small white pup with bright eyes leaned in from the edge of the firelight, watching him with simple curiosity. Kang Hyun stared, his mind still stuck on the giant wolf he had imagined, trying to match that terror with this tiny, fluffy thing. The little white pup padded over to his pan and started licking up the last traces of oil like that had been its goal all along. Plopped down in front of him, tail wagging and tongue hanging out, looking more like it wanted seconds than a fight. Kang Hyun watched the fluffy creature, and still tense, wondered how the nightmare in his mind had turned into what looked like a harmless little dog. In his head, Kang Hyun pictured himself and the tiny white pup just sitting across from each other, both unsure what to do next. The little white pup just sat there, licking its leg like it was back home on a couch, instead of in the middle of a dark forest. Kang Hyun eyed the fluffy thing and guessed it had to be some kind of baby husky, even if that made no sense out here. The pup climbed onto his leg and stared up at him with shining eyes, drool gathering as if asking what was on the menu next. Kang Hyun waved his hand and told it that if it was full, it should head off, adding that he was not a dog person anyway. A moment later, Kang Hyun had the pup in his lap, hands flying as he rubbed its fur, grumbling that he really did not see what was so cute about dogs. As he stroked it, Kang Hyun noticed the fur was rough and stiff, more like a wild animal's coat than a pampered pet. Studying the bright eyes and thick tail, he paused, realizing there was something odd about how this little creature was put together. The pup beamed up at him, a tiny fang flashing in its grin, and for the first time it looked less like a lost dog and more like something out of a story. Kang Hyun froze, mind sparking as it hit him that this cute little thing was actually a wolf. The air around him felt like it cracked with that realization while the pup just calmly licked his arm. Kang Hyun clutched the pup and whipped his head around, suddenly sure its mother had to be close and wondering if the wolves from before were actually this little one's family. In his head, the mother wolf loomed behind the happy pup, flames licking off her fur as the little one tattled that a filthy human had grabbed it. And Kang Hyun broke into a cold sweat, sure she would think he was trying to snatch her baby. Back in the dark forest, Kang Hyun sat cross-legged with the pup in his lap, listening to the stillness and bracing himself for a giant wolf that never came. He finally dropped flat on the dirt with a long, drained sigh while the pup just watched him, head tilted. Lying there with the little wolf on his back, Kang Hyun mumbled that whether it was a dog or a wolf, whether he got eaten or starved, he felt like he was done for anyway. When the pup stayed glued to him, Kang Hyun groaned that if it planned to eat him it should know humans taste weird, then blinked, puzzled at how this little wolf seemed to follow every word. As the pup chirped happily, a soft light bloomed in the roots behind them, and Kang Hyun stared, stunned that this odd wolf seemed to be guiding him straight to something otherworldly. His eyes snapped wide as the glow filled his vision, and in that instant Kang Hyun understood that whatever that light was, his quiet camping trip was over. Kang Hyun leaned over the glowing hollow, heart racing, as he realized this looked just like the hole he had fallen through before, and for the first time he wondered if it might be his way back. Staring at his hand, the chef tried to steady his breathing, telling himself that if this really was the same passage, then maybe he could crawl through and finally go home. His fingers hovered over the shimmering edge, and a cold thought hit him that the path seemed to slope even deeper, like it might drop him somewhere far worse instead of back to his tent. So he dropped to his knees and pressed his face close to the light, deciding to scout it out a little before trusting his whole body to this strange tunnel. The little white wolf, thrilled by the glow, bounded ahead with its tongue lolling, as if this strange passage was nothing more than a fun new field to play in. Instead of stopping, the pup launched itself right onto Kang Hyun's back, its weight knocking him off balance and driving him headfirst into the shining hollow. As the ground vanished under him, Kang Hyun's eye went wide and a tiny sound of shock slipped out, too late to grab onto anything. Spinning through blinding light with his stomach in his throat, the worn-out chef could only think that this was all that crazy little wolf's fault. Everything spun into darkness around Kang Hyun, shapes smearing together as he tumbled with no sense of up or down. Kang Hyun's body shot toward a blinding cross of light in the middle of a star-filled void, while the little white wolf watched from below as if pushing him toward the exit. A raw shout tore out of him, swallowed at once by the roaring light. Kang Hyun squeezed his eyes shut, muscles tight, sure he was about to smash into something hard. He slowly cracked his eyes open, confused at first, then stunned as it hit him that he was back where he had started. His legs felt weak, but he managed to stand, breathing hard as the simple fact sank in that he had actually survived that crazy fall. For a moment he pictured his younger self, all bright eyes and big dreams, the kind of person who never forgot to thank someone who helped him. Kang Hyun straightened, pressed a fist to his chest, and silently promised the great white wolf that even if they never met again, he would remember what it had done for him, while the little pup watched him with wide, trusting eyes. Kang Hyun tightened his fist, then turned toward the tiny white pup watching him with bright, trusting eyes. In that simple look, he knew he could not just walk away from it. Back in his own room, Kang Hyun leaned on his desk and watched the little wolf shake itself out on the floor, still trying to figure out this strange new place. The quiet felt different now that he was not alone. While he was cooking, the pup shot toward him like a white blur, making Kang Hyun jerk back with a panicked yelp and nearly drop his spatula. Life with this little thing was already nothing like the quiet days he was used to. Later, the chef sat cross-legged on the floor and held up a board covered with silly white-themed names, asking the pup which one it liked. Naming it, even just for now, felt like admitting it had a place by his side. That night, Kang Hyun fell asleep on his bed with the little wolf tucked in his arms, the two of them breathing in the same slow rhythm. For the first time in a long while, the room felt warm instead of empty. Kang Hyun slept deeply, his face soft in the dim light, as if the weight on his chest had eased just a little. Curled against his arm, the fluffy pup slept with its tongue peeking out, trusting him enough to let its guard drop all the way. Morning came with Kang Hyun stretching hard, joints popping, while the little wolf lay on its back beside him without a care in the world. Waking up next to that fluffy belly made the day ahead feel a bit less heavy. Kang Hyun stretched with a slow breath and realized he had actually slept well for once. Beside him, the little white wolf snored on its back without a worry in the world, as if good sleep had always been normal. Later, Kang Hyun crossed the messy room with a blue bowl in hand, deciding that since wolves were close to dogs, plain dog food should work for now. He slid the bowl of dry kibble toward the drowsy pup, hoping basic dog food would be good enough. Crouching to its level, the chef nudged the bowl closer and watched carefully to see if the little wolf would even touch it. Soon Kang Hyun was staring at a bag of cat food in one hand and rabbit pellets in the other, wondering if any of this made sense for a white wolf that already turned its nose up at rabbit feed. The more he thought about it, the more his head hurt, and in a burst of guilty panic, he even wondered if he should just let it go hungry rather than feed it the wrong thing. A full meal covered the table, from hot soup and rice to stir-fried meat and kimchi, the kind of spread that said Kang Hyun had really put his heart into cooking again. Kang Hyun poked at the food with a weak smile, thinking that even if his tongue was still numb, maybe one of these dishes would finally give him a hint of flavor again. Before he could even lift his chopsticks, the white wolf pup shot across the table and clamped its mouth around a bowl, leaving Kang Hyun staring in shock as his hard-earned dish vanished. Kang Hyun froze, an idea hitting him so hard it felt like a jolt of lightning running up his spine. The plate of beef and bean sprouts sat scraped clean beside the little wolf, as if the pup had just given his silent stamp of approval. The white pup waddled between the plates like a tiny food critic, wiping out the miso soup, nodding at the salad and frozen chicken, and making it clear that the handmade dishes were on a whole different level. Kang Hyun watched the white wolf pup go wild over a chunk of stewed tofu, wondering how a supposed wild hunter could be this crazy about soft bean curd. Resting his chin on his hand, Kang Hyun studied the round little body and began to wonder if this wolf was not just picky, but some kind of born gourmet. Kang Hyun set 2 plates of the same steak in front of the white pup, explaining that he had used the same good meat and cooked both in exactly the same way. Kang Hyun's eyes sharpen as he tells the pup that the only real difference this time is the sauce. He points out that one steak is covered in a normal store sauce, while the other carries his own special recipe that once wowed judges at a world cooking contest, then tells the pup to prove its gourmet skills by choosing between them. Electric tension seemed to burst around Kang Hyun as he loomed over the tiny wolf, jabbing a finger at the plates, and pushing it to make its choice like this was the most important test in the world. The white pup leaned in toward the steak with the commercial sauce, sniffing it carefully before taking a bite, as if confirming that even this simple one was still pretty tasty. Watching with folded arms, Kang Hyun thinks that if the pup still picks his special sauce over the store one, then this little white rice cake really does have the nose of a true food expert. Kang Hyun watched from behind as the white pup focused on the first plate, chewing slowly through the sauce steak while he hummed under his breath, trying to read its tiny reactions. With both plates now licked and only a few streaks of sauce left, the white pup stood between them sniffing, while Kang Hyun stared wide-eyed, waiting to see which side it would nudge toward for its final pick. Kang Hyun snapped his head toward the pup, eyes huge as it barked proudly in front of the clean plates, like a tiny food critic announcing its verdict. The little white wolf flopped onto its back with its tongue hanging out, so stuffed and pleased that it looked like a true gourmet who had just tasted perfection. Kang Hyun's hard look melted into a soft smile, already accepting that he could never serve this picky little wolf anything less than his very best again. Later, Kang Hyun stood in the yard with a long roller, calmly painting the tall wall a bright green as if this quiet work helped clear his head. He moved the roller up and down in steady strokes, slowly covering the old surface and letting the simple rhythm push all other thoughts away. After a while he frowned at the roller, suddenly noticing that the shade on the wall looked strange, like the color was not what he had picked at all. He lifted the roller closer and studied it, wondering if there was something wrong with the paint itself to make it come out this weird. Far away, the white pup lay curled on the ground with a dull look in its eyes, as if the world felt boring again now that there was no new dish to taste. An older man in a bright cap glared up at Kang Hyun and grumbled that kids these days could not even tell who they should greet first after moving in. Kang Hyun scratched his head with a blank look, honestly wondering who this old guy even was and why he was acting so worked up. The neighbor pushed his sunglasses up and complained that since Kang Hyun never came by to greet him, he had no choice but to come over himself. Standing in front of the streaky green wall, the neighbor clicked his tongue and said Kang Hyun's painting was terrible, guessing right away that it was his first time doing this kind of work. When the neighbor's eyes fell on the white pup lounging in the grass, he asked in surprise if Kang Hyun even had a dog, and Kang Hyun hurriedly agreed, stumbling over his words as he almost called it a wolf. Squatting down near the pup, the neighbor waved off Kang Hyun's effort and told him to leave the wall as it was, promising that he would find someone to handle it properly. Kang Hyun laughed weakly and tried to wave it off, saying he could call someone himself and that there had to be people in the village who did this kind of work. The neighbor almost slid across the yard as he leaned in, telling Kang Hyun not to plan anything for the weekend because he would bring a proper worker over and that the paint should be left alone until then. Kang Hyun scratched his neck and looked away, thinking that even if this whole thing was getting on his nerves, he might as well just let them help. A cicada clung to the sunlit tree, its steady cry filling the warm country air. Neighbor's sunglasses rested on his green cap, making him look oddly fired up for a simple paint job. The neighbor beamed as he introduced young Minho, the farmer's son from the nearby fields, bragging that this quiet guy was surprisingly good at this kind of work. Kang Hyun stepped out of the doorway, awkwardly giving his name while staring at them, a bit shocked that the neighbor had really gone and brought people over. While Kang Hyun watched with a board in his hands, Minho said they should smooth the wall with sandpaper and pulled out the sheets he had brought along. Side by side, the neighbor and Minho knelt in the grass and worked the roller over the wall like it was their own place. As Kang Hyun walked over with a tray of drinks, the neighbor casually asked what kind of place this would become, and Kang Hyun answered that he was planning to turn it into an Italian restaurant, leaving them both a little taken aback by the fancy idea. Minho's ear twitched, and a bit of sweat formed as he took in the word Western. Staring at Kang Hyun with the drinks, Minho quietly repeated the word Western in his head, already thinking where that could lead. The farmer's son looked a bit shy as he asked if this Western place would happen to serve pork cutlets. Sitting across from Kang Hyun and the neighbor, Minho admitted that his wife loved pork cutlets. He turned the glass in his hands and said the little place they always went to had shut its doors. In his mind, Minho saw himself in a silly bare apron, shrinking in shame while his pregnant wife poked at the burnt pork cutlet he had tried to make since she could not travel far anymore. Back at the table, Minho rushed to say it was fine if pork cutlets were not on the menu, adding that they were simple enough to make anyway, while Kang Hyun lifted his glass and listened in silence. Staring at his own face in the water, Kang Hyun thought that even if pork cutlets were easy, he could not bring himself to serve any dish when he no longer knew how it tasted. Kang Hyun's lips parted as he quietly admitted that maybe opening a restaurant was a mistake. As that doubt slipped out, Kang Hyun's mind jumped back to the tiny white pup that had once stared up at him with those bright eyes. He could almost see the pup again, panting happily, as if it were begging him to cook something tasty one more time. Kang Hyun's eyes flew wide as that memory hit him, and a sharp thought cut through his gloom. He shot up from his seat so fast that Minho flinched, nearly spilling the drink in his hands. With new energy in his voice, Kang Hyun told Minho that he could make pork cutlets for them. Grinning now, the chef promised he would help Minho and his wife relive those warm days from their favorite pork cutlet place. Kang Hyun frowned at his notes, wondering if a tiny countryside place would really bother with tomato paste when that could make the sauce taste bitter. His thoughts locked onto fresh tomatoes, bright and juicy, as if they were the heart of that old sauce. He remembered how the sauce tasted sweet thanks to those tomatoes, and suddenly it clicked that the base had just been simple ketchup. Grinning now, Kang Hyun looked at the tomatoes and bottled sauce, thinking how that little place had just used ready-made ingredients and dressed them up well. The tiny white pup bounced on its paws, eyes shining, as if cheering him on for getting serious about cooking again. Kang Hyun rolled up his sleeve with a cocky grin, warning the eager pup that it had better keep up because he was just getting started. His knife moved in quick, clean strokes through the onion, years of training flowing back into his hands without a hint of doubt. Soon the egg wash and breadcrumbs were lined up neatly, the classic path waiting for each piece of pork before it hit the oil. The pork cutlet sank into the hot oil and burst into a storm of golden bubbles, filling the air with a rich, toasty smell. The white pup's ears shot up, its whole body buzzing as the scent of the frying meat washed over it. Kang Hyun watched the pup's tail, noticing it wagging slower than before and worrying the sauce might be too sweet. The tiny wolf still licked the plate clean, but its body language had turned from wild joy to careful tasting. The chef slid out several fresh cutlets, each sliced and coated in glossy sauce, lining them up like different answers to the same question. As the pup nibbled again, Kang Hyun's eyes tightened. Even this version still felt lacking to him, too soft in flavor. He thought back to the empty days after he lost his taste, when standing in a kitchen felt more like work than life. Soon the little wolf flopped onto its back with a round belly and a dazed, happy face, making it clear this batch had hit the mark even if Kang Hyun himself could not taste it. Stirring the simmering red sauce, Kang Hyun laughed to himself, feeling a rush of excitement he had not felt in years as he cooked to match the pup's honest reactions. Outside the kitchen window, a small white truck sat in the sunlight, hinting that someone had come while Kang Hyun was lost in his cooking. The man watched the pregnant woman with a worried face, and gently asked if her morning sickness had eased up at all. The young mother-to-be laughed, rubbing her belly, and said she was fine, more excited about trying this new place than worrying about feeling sick. In the warm little restaurant, she chatted about how long it had been since she last had pork cutlets, while her partner listened with a shy smile. Kang Hyun stared ahead, the memory of that simple meal with the happy round belly across the table floating back to him. The server slid a glossy pork cutlet onto the table, the rich sauce shining beside a neat mound of rice and shredded cabbage. The woman's eyes lit up as the steam reached her, and she breathed in deeply, amazed at how good it smelled. She steadied the knife and fork and sliced through the crisp cutlet, sauce pooling around the golden crust. The young woman lifted the bite to her lips and leaned in, ready to finally taste the pork cutlet she had been craving. Said that the little shop husband out in the countryside had been good too, swallowed hard, and asked her how it tasted, clearly worried but hoping she loved it. Then she laughed, clutching her cheek, and admitted this place was even better, saying she was honestly over the moon. She dragged her fork through the glossy sauce and noted that it tasted a lot like the one she remembered. But she added that the meat here was way crispier on the outside and juicier inside, which made it stand out. Kang Hyun watched her with a faint smile, hearing her gush that she had never tasted pork cutlets like this before. Resting a hand on her belly, the wife changed the topic, asking if he remembered their very first date. She reminded him that they had eaten pork cutlets back then too, and joked that he had spent the whole time sneaking looks at her instead of his food. The husband scratched the back of his head, cheeks burning, and asked if his shaking hands back then had made her worry that much. The young wife smiled softly and said that after that date she started ordering pork cutlets all the time, even though she had never really liked them before. Her gaze turned gentle as she admitted it probably was not the pork cutlet itself that she had fallen for. Looking straight at her husband, the wife said she had really been savoring the memory of being with him, not just the taste on her tongue. Kang Hyun watched them with a calm smile, feeling how much that simple plate of pork cutlets had come to hold their whole story as a couple. Stepping back from the table, the chef glanced down at the round white pup sprawled by his feet and admitted he had probably fed it a bit too much, while the wife praised him for doing a great job. Kang Hyun stared at the little white wolf rolled onto its back like a fluffy ball, clearly so full it could not even move. The tiny wolf let out an eager bark from the floor, and Kang Hyun answered with an easy smile, already treating it like another regular at his table. Kang Hyun sat in the calm cafe before opening hours, jotting down ideas while the stuffed white pup rested at his feet like a sleepy little guardian. The chef tapped his pen and wrote down a simple idea, a menu built around whatever the customers wanted instead of some fixed fancy style. Kang Hyun folded his arms and thought about how spots like that already existed but were all pricey, deciding he would just learn on the fly and make his own version work. The chef eyed the tiny white wolf sprawled on the floor and decided he really had to do something, even wondering if it was sinking into some kind of doggy sadness despite all the walks. Kang Hyun pressed the pen to his lips, wondering if the little wolf simply missed the deep forest it had left behind. The little wolf just lay there on its back, paws limp and ears drooping, making it clear that staying here was draining the life out of it. Kang Hyun stared at his pen and accepted that he should send the little wolf back to its own world, already feeling how much lonelier this house would become without it. Soon as he thought about going back, Kang Hyun remembered the ripped rabbit man and that creepy long-eared thing, and his face went stiff. He hugged his arms and shivered in the warm cafe, already dreading the idea of walking back into that forest alone. He started to talk himself out of it, but the little white wolf peeked over the table with huge, hopeful eyes, silently begging him not to break his word. The pup's eyes grew even bigger and shinier, hitting him with a look no human could ever say no to. Before he knew it, Kang Hyun was back in the glowing forest with a pack on his shoulders, the pup trotting ahead while strange rabbits watched from the trees. He scratched his head with a sigh, wondering why he had come back at all and telling himself to just get this over with. He quietly wondered if everything would really be all right, not noticing that the same muscle-bound rabbit from his memories was already peeking at him from behind a tree. He followed the path with the pup at his side, the glowing trees and thick colors making him feel like he had walked straight into a different dimension. Kang Hyun slowed his steps, his eyes fixed on something bright breaking through the thick trees ahead. He pushed the branches out of his way, sweat running down his face as he wondered if there might be water past this thicket. When he finally stepped out, Kang Hyun froze, his eyes going wide at the view opening up before him. A wide blue lake stretched out under the sky, and as he took it in, Kang Hyun finally understood why the little wolf would miss a place like this. The white pup hurried to the shore, nose almost touching the water as it stared at the gentle waves with pure joy. Sitting down by the water with his pack in his lap, Kang Hyun told the pup he had something to give it before he went back. The chef dug into his backpack and carefully pulled out a metal case, saying the pup had helped him a lot with those pork cutlets. A shiny portable grill now stood on the grass, already set up and waiting, his way of giving the pup one more lakeside meal to remember. He opened the pack to reveal thick, beautifully marbled cuts of meat, shining in the light like they were made just for this goodbye meal. The little white pup stared at the meat with its mouth wide open, eyes shining like it had just been handed the best gift in the world. Kang Hyun poured beaten egg onto the hot plate with steady hands, already turning this simple grill into a real meal. The chef picked up a thick slice of meat with his tongs, ready to lay the first steak on the grill with the lake spread out behind it. As the meat hit the heat, Kang Hyun shook out a careful layer of seasoning, treating each slice like it was being served in a top restaurant instead of a quiet lakeshore. Soon a plate filled with glossy, perfectly grilled pieces of meat sat ready, the smell rich enough to make anyone forget their worries for a while. Kang Hyun sat back in his chair, watching the white pup hug its plate and chew with sleepy joy, and he gently told it that with meals like this, it would be strong enough to start flying in no time. Kang Hyun turned toward the wide lake and the green mountains beyond, trying to fix this peaceful view in his mind before he had to go back. Kang Hyun stared down with the tongs still in his hand, the joy of cooking fading as the thought of leaving settled back in. His fingers brushed the empty grill, as if he was trying to hold on to the simple comfort of cooking a little longer. The little white pup sank into the blanket with pink cheeks and half-closed eyes, looking so full and happy it seemed ready to drift off right there. Kang Hyun grabbed a cold can from the cooler and lifted it, giving himself a small toast to this strange but peaceful day. He leaned back in the chair and took a long sip, the soft breeze from the lake and the smell of grilled meat wrapping around him like a blanket. He tilted the can higher, almost forcing the drink down, hoping the cold bite or the bubbles might spark even a hint of taste. The burn hit his throat all at once, and he jerked the can back with a grimace as the fizz sprayed, more startled by the sting than anything else. Kang Hyun let out a weak laugh, admitting to himself that he still could not taste a thing, then reminded himself that people said you did not drink for flavor anyway and tried to trust that idea. Kang Hyun lifted his head toward the clear sky, letting the quiet and the open air wash over him for one more easy breath. Cold metal slid against Kang Hyun's neck, and his whole body went stiff as he realized someone with a sword was standing right behind him. Kang Hyun's eyes darted to the shining blade, sweat rolling down his cheek as the armored man behind him demanded to know what he was and where someone like him, with such strange tools, had come from. The armored warrior stood behind the chair without lowering his blade, studying Kang Hyun like he was some strange creature that had wandered into the wrong place. Behind, it was clear how bad it was. Kang Hyun sat frozen in his camp chair while the armed warrior loomed over him, sword pressed close as he pushed for answers about whether this stranger was some kind of wizard or spy. The warrior's face tightened, eyes wide with a mix of fear and anger, as if the idea of an unknown outsider sitting so calmly in their land scared him more than he wanted to admit. Leaning in closer, the warrior finally cut through his own doubt and flatly demanded that Kang Hyun state who he was. Kang Hyun swallowed hard, feeling the edge of the blade with every breath, knowing he could not dodge the question any longer and would have to explain himself to survive this meeting. The armored warrior's eyes flew wide, his hard expression cracking as he spotted something that made his grip on the sword falter for a heartbeat. Kang Hyun stared ahead with the cold edge still at his neck, sweat sliding down his cheek as he waited for the warrior's next move. His mind went empty for a second, lips parted and eyes wide, because something in the warrior's stare told him the danger had suddenly changed. The armored warrior turned toward the clearing and froze at the sight of the tiny white wolf, happily chewing on meat from a plate by the campfire. The warrior's jaw tightened as he stared at the pup, suddenly wondering if this playful little thing was actually one of the sacred white wolves he had only heard about in stories. The white wolf pup only blinked slowly, blue eyes steady as it kept working on the meat, as if armored men and drawn swords were none of its business. Kang Hyun flailed in his chair, blurting out that he could pay as much as they wanted, then stumbling over his own words as he remembered this world might not even use the same money. He rushed on, saying he would find some way to trade the money later if they just let him walk away, then added in a small, shaky voice that he already knew this was no place an ordinary guy like him should have stepped into. The armored warrior eased the blade away from Kang Hyun's neck, admitting to himself that he had overreacted. Straightening up, the warrior placed a fist over his chest and introduced himself as Randolph, a knight serving the territory below. Kang Hyun stared at him, still tense, wondering why this guy who had just been ready to cut him down was suddenly acting so polite. The little white wolf lay on the grass with only a scrap of meat left, so relaxed and content that it made Randolph sure this stranger could not be a bad person. Seeing Kang Hyun's blank face, Randolph realized the camper had no idea and began to explain that white wolves are a race said to carry the blood of an ancient god. His words painted a picture of a mighty white wolf standing alone on a frozen peak beneath twin moons, the ancestor that the whole white wolf race was said to come from. In the stories, the primordial wolf god's bright blue eyes can tell good from evil at a glance, and are filled with a wisdom far beyond any humans. The tale ended with the white wolves themselves, living under the cold moonlight, said to carry a faint echo of that god's sight and wisdom in their own clear eyes. Randolph gestured toward the dozing pup, saying that a white wolf like that choosing to stay with Kang Hyun meant something. Kang Hyun just stared, still trying to match the lazy furball with the godlike beast from the story. The thought hit Kang Hyun like a flash. The greedy little rice cake was actually a descendant of a god. Suddenly, all of the pup's bold, spoiled behavior started to make sense. He remembered the day the pup had cleared pork cutlets meant for 10 people, and then dodged his grandpa like an eel. Realizing that a god's descendant had pulled all that off, Kang Hyun could only grit his teeth at how sneaky it was. Kang Hyun narrowed his eyes, already plotting how to deal with his so-called divine freeloader. Randolph watched his twisted expression and calmly said that whatever he was imagining, it probably was not like that at all. Kang Hyun set out a plate of rich, sauced beef, the surface shining in the light. When Randolph asked what kind of meat it was, the camper explained it was beef and a bit shyly asked if the knight wanted to try some. Randolph tried to brush it off, saying he had already eaten, but his voice cracked and his stomach growled loud enough to give him away. He finally admitted he had not had a single bite. The knight glanced away embarrassed, thinking he had only meant to check things out. With a smell like this, though, even a man who had just eaten would struggle to walk away. Randolph finally asked if he could at least have one bite and gave a thumbs up, his eyes shining like a kid's. Watching him, Kang Hyun felt a strange déjà vu, picturing rice cakes wide, pleading eyes doing the exact same thing. Randolph opens his mouth wide and bites down on the glossy chunk of beef, unable to hold back any longer. The beef bursts with juice, sauce gleaming as it seems to almost spill flavor into the air. Randolph freezes, cheeks flushed and eyes sparkling, wondering how meat could be this juicy and soft as it melts in his mouth. The knight mutters that meat this good is rare in his world, then his eyes snap to the odd metal can in Kang Hyun's hand, demanding to know what it is. Kang Hyun calmly explains that it is alcohol, and Randolph repeats the word in disbelief, staring at the plain silver can like it is some rare treasure. The knight asks if this drink comes from Kang Hyun's homeland and even comments on the strange metal cup, while the camper lightly offers to let him try some. Randolph insists he only asked out of curiosity and says there is no need to go that far, trying to act polite even as the can hovers right in front of him. Then the knight clamps his gauntleted hand around Kang Hyun's wrist, pulling the can to his mouth as he declares that, since it has been placed in his hand, he cannot possibly turn it down, his grip far stronger than Kang Hyun expected. Kang Hyun calmly cracks open a fresh can, deciding to just give Randolph a new drink instead of arguing over the one he snatched. When Kang Hyun tells him it is called beer, Randolph lights up, lifting the can like he just found some rare treasure while Kang Hyun watches, a bit unsure. After a long gulp, Randolph bursts out in praise, amazed that beer can taste this clean and smooth compared to anything he knows. Knight throws his arm up with the can, savoring the moment, looking more like a happy local enjoying a day off than the man who had just threatened Kang Hyun. Standing by the lakeside camp with the empty plates and the sleepy pup, Randolph says he cannot walk away after enjoying such food and drink, telling Kang Hyun to seek him out in town so he can return the favor. With an easy smile, Randolph adds that he is actually the knight captain of Robentus, hinting that visiting him will mean real protection and support. Kang Hyun stares at him, turning the words Knight Captain over in his head and wondering what kind of rank that even is here. Kang Hyun, totally guessing, treats Knight Captain like some squad leader and just nods along. And Randolph, watching this clueless calm, decides this quiet camper is far from an ordinary person. Randolph starts to warn Kang Hyun about how random things can show up in this area, then shrugs it off, saying that with a white wolf at his side he should be fine. Kang Hyun glances down at the pup, who is just shoving its bowl at him, clearly more worried about refills than danger. Kang Hyun mutters that the little glutton already went through 5 helpings, but the pup bounces with the bowl, demanding even more. With that, Randolph says he has to get back to his patrol and asks to be excused, leaving Kang Hyun alone with the hungry wolf. Randolph heads off between the trees, saying he hopes they run into each other again. Kang Hyun reaches out after him, calling for him to wait, but the knight is already walking away. Kang Hyun stares after him, replaying the words Knight Captain Randolph in his head and remembering that the man said he was on patrol. The thought hangs there, not quite matching the image of a guy happily downing beer a moment ago. Randolph's face comes to mind, calm and a little smug, like a man who just enjoyed a great drink instead of someone out working. Kang Hyun pictures the cold can still in Randolph's hand, the metal catching the light like proof that the knight had been drinking on the clock. He wonders if knocking back beer while on duty is really fine in this world, then gives up on trying to apply his own rules, figuring they must just have a different way of doing things here. Kang Hyun meets those huge shining eyes and sighs, deciding that since this is the last batch anyway, the pup can just have it all. He tips the plate, and fresh chunks of meat tumble into the bowl, sending the little wolf into pure joy. Kang Hyun watched the little glutton and thought that thanks to this guy, his days out here had actually felt lively again. His mind, little snapshots lined up one after another. The pup crashing into him, begging for food, and grinning with those huge blue eyes after every meal. Now they just sat on the warm grass, the pup pushing its bowl around while Kang Hyun rested beside it, soaking in the gentle peace. He reached for his bag and told the pup that even though their time together was short, he had really enjoyed it, and that because of this little guy he had been able to make some truly great pork cutlets. With his pack on his shoulders, Kang Hyun started down the forest path, saying that he was not sure they would ever meet again, so the pup should stay safe until then. He tightened his grip on the strap and walked on across the bright field, quietly saying that this was goodbye for now. As he headed deeper between the trees, a sudden sound behind him made him slow his steps. Kang Hyun turned his head, the golden light wrapping around him as he hesitated, unsure if he should really just keep walking away. Kang Hyun glared back and saw the little glutton wrestling with the empty bowl like nothing had changed, thinking that this is why people say raising kids is pointless. He told himself they had not even known each other that long, so he should not feel this bothered. Still, the camper could not help thinking he had hoped the pup would cling to him a bit more, the way people crave plain white rice when they miss home. The only thing left behind was the nearly licked clean bowl, proof that for the pup, a full stomach mattered more than a sad farewell. Kang Hyun stopped under the warm forest light, a strange feeling creeping over him that his goodbye might not be finished yet. He slowly turned his head, heart caught between wanting to move on and secretly wishing something would call him back. When he glanced back, the white pup was already clinging to his backpack, tiny paws dug in like it had decided on its own that it was coming along. Kang Hyun broke into a run, waving the backpack around in a panic and yelling at the pup, demanding to know why it was clinging to his precious bag instead of letting go. Kang Hyun dropped to the ground, gasping for air after flailing his backpack around. The little white pup just stood there in front of him as if nothing was wrong, while his bag and drink rolled across the dirt. Instead of backing off, the tiny white wolf padded closer and started softly licking his hand. That warm, ticklish touch cut straight through his frustration. Kang Hyun stared down at it, breathing slowly as his anger faded into confusion. This was the place the pup had wanted to return to, so he could not grasp why it was trying so hard to stick with him. On the soft grass, the white pup stepped forward and rested a tiny paw on his hand. Under the warm light, it felt less like a goodbye and more like the start of something they both had not planned. When he lifted his hand, the little wolf balanced on it and let out a bright, eager bark. Its whole body shook with excitement, like being with him was the best thing in the world. Kang Hyun studied the pup's shining eyes, almost afraid to believe it had chosen him over its own home. Deep down, though, he already knew the answer and felt his chest loosen a little. Holding the fluffy body against his palms, Kang Hyun sighed and admitted to himself that he had already taken this troublemaker along once. For a pup that never listens, it sure trusted him completely. He lifted the little wolf up toward the sky, and they traded matching smiles, man and pup both looking oddly relieved. Just like that, Kang Hyun had gained an unexpected partner for the road ahead. The countryside around his grandfather's house lay under a bright blue sky, fields of green swaying like nothing strange had ever happened there. As he walked, Kang Hyun suddenly wondered if this meant he now had to visit that other world on a regular basis. Looking at the excited pup dangling from his bag, he figured that if he skipped a visit, Rice Cake would throw a fit until he gave in. Still, Kang Hyun told himself he could just treat it as taking Rice Cake out to play, the same way they enjoyed themselves today. On his way back, he slowed down, noticing way more people than usual gathered and cheering nearby. When he turned fully, he saw the whole group spread out on mats right in front of his grandfather's house and felt his stomach drop. An older man in a green cap brightened when he spotted Kang Hyun, calling out to him as if they had been waiting for him to show up. Kang Hyun, still confused, asked what everyone was doing at his doorstep. And the village chief laughed as he explained they were holding a feast here and thought Kang Hyun already knew. Kang Hyun answered the chief in a laid-back way, saying that even if someone had told him about this gathering, he still would have stayed away. One of the villagers rushed over with a long rolled banner, telling the village chief it had arrived just in time. Thinking he did not belong here, Kang Hyun tried to excuse himself and leave, but the village chief grabbed his shoulder and urged him to stay and join them. The banner unfurled above the mats, shouting a welcome to Kang Hyun as the villagers clapped and cheered. And the chief proudly told him this whole party was to celebrate him joining their village. Kang Hyun stared back at the noisy yard with wide eyes, the sleepy pup in his bag blinking up at him. And he finally realized this whole warm fuss was really for him. Everyone had already settled onto the blue mats, plates half empty, chatting like this was the best day of the week. A man burst out laughing while the woman beside him popped another bite into her mouth, both of them hooked on Kang Hyun's cooking. Kang Hyun sagged under a neighbor's arm, eyes dull and face tired, while another hand kept patting his head like he was some kind of prize. The villagers leaned in from both sides, one raving about his pork cutlets and height while the other waved a drink. And Kang Hyun just sat there wishing he could slip away. A younger pair watched with uneasy faces, telling the others to ease up because Kang Hyun looked completely spent. The woman in yellow admitted they always go this far for new people, saying that in a small town they share what they have and make a big deal out of any good news. From the back, someone yelled that they mostly just like to drink themselves silly, and the whole group roared in agreement, cups waving in the air. Later, the village chief leaned down to Kang Hyun's eye level and said that sharing like this was their way of caring, and that letting people know who he was would help him fit in here. The village chief leaned in close, quietly suggesting that Kang Hyun should talk about his soon-to-open restaurant while everyone was in such a good mood. Kang Hyun stared up blankly for a moment. Then it hit him that the chief was actually trying to help him get his restaurant started. Then Kang Hyun glanced at the chief's clothes, covered in dangling bottle caps, and wondered if he should really trust business tips from someone this far gone. While the chief rushed around yelling about opening the whiskey and another neighbor tried to slow him down, Kang Hyun took a slow sip and admitted to himself that he really should talk about his restaurant here. A woman in a yellow top walked over with another full plate, and the villagers cheered as the food kept coming, turning the gathering into an even better chance for Kang Hyun to talk with them. Nearby, one of the elders bragged that his grandson had bought him a heater, and the old man in yellow laughed and started grumbling about that heater like it was more trouble than help. Kang Hyun sat cross-legged at the edge of the mat with a can in hand, listening to the laughter behind him while he gathered himself. He took another slow drink with his eyes closed, and despite the noise in his tired body, admitted to himself that this peaceful country party was not bad at all. Kang Hyun turned his head slightly as the elders started fussing over the empty mat, wondering where the rice cakes had gone and what strange white fluff had shown up in their place. The little white pup sat in front of the plate, tilting its head back and swallowing the grilled meat so fast it looked like it was drinking it instead of chewing. When a villager reached in to stop it, the pup casually slid out of reach, leaving only lettuce and a smear of sauce on the plate. The villager threw his whole body forward to catch the thief, but the tiny wolf shot off like a bullet, not even looking back. The pup hopped straight over them, and the two men chasing it slammed into each other and hit the ground while the old man yelled in frustration. While the men groaned that it had slipped past every one of their tackles, the little wolf calmly noted that they were easy to read now, and it could dodge them without even trying. One of the village women hurried over with a new plate of sirloin, smiling as she brought it out, unaware that the tiny thief was already eyeing it. In a white blur, the pup shot across the mats, snatching steaks off each table before anyone could blink, and the woman in glasses stared at her empty plate, shouting that her precious meat had vanished. The little white wolf shot in again for the fresh meat, but a villager's hand darted down, finally fast enough to try and block its raid. Kang Hyun rubbed his temple while the villager asked if that thief was his dog, and he brushed it off, acting like he had never seen the pup in his life. As he chewed in silence, Kang Hyun remembered how he had hugged that tiny wolf-like family, then tried to push the warmth away, telling himself he should have left it behind. The villagers joked around him, but Kang Hyun's gaze drifted past the empty plate to a boy sitting alone at the edge of the mat, watching them quietly. The boy hugged his knees and stared at the ground, the happy noise around him only making his empty spot feel colder. Kang Hyun watched him for a moment and guessed the kid had no one his age here, wondering if that was why his face looked so heavy. The boy's grandmother knelt beside him and held out a small wrapped dish, hoping a treat from home might lift the cloud hanging over him. Instead of taking it, the boy jumped up and lashed out, sending the food tumbling as his grandmother jerked back in shock at his sudden anger. One of the men at the table shot to his feet, face twisted with anger, cursing the kid for acting out at his own grandmother. The grandmother flinched from the boy's shove, then felt a soft paw tug at her sleeve, the little white wolf trying in its own way to comfort her while Kang Hyun and the others stared. A man in a green cap stepped over and quietly asked the grandmother what was going on, saying the boy had been moody ever since he came back from school the day before. She explained that at school his friend had gone on and on about some amazing hamburger he ate, and ever since hearing that story the boy had been sulking and throwing fits. The grandmother held up a cheap snack with a burger printed on the wrapper, admitting she had bought it for him but knew it was nothing like the real thing he wanted. One of the villagers guessed the kid was craving a real hamburger from a shop, and Kang Hyun took a slow sip from his cup, turning that idea over in his mind. When the man in the cap wondered aloud if he should pick up hamburgers on his way back to town tomorrow, the boys around him shot up their hands, already cheering at the thought. Then someone reminded him that those burgers were only sold at a big place in the city, and the man in the cap's face fell as the kid's easy wish suddenly sounded a lot harder to grant. The villagers murmured among themselves as someone pointed out that the burger place was in a big city packed with theme parks, the kind of spot people compared to Disneyland. The man in the green cap suddenly brightened and told the grandmother they did not need that city shop at all, since they could just make real hamburgers here with help from the chef who came down from Seoul. He swung around and pointed straight at Kang Hyun, making the chef choke on his drink as the man shouted that their answer was sitting right there. Kang Hyun stared ahead in a daze, drink still in hand, as it sank in that the man was right and that everyone now expected him to make those hamburgers. With an arm slung over his shoulders, the man pleaded that they were counting on him, and Kang Hyun let out a weary breath and silently gave in. The man lowered his voice and told Kang Hyun that Sang-woo might not really care about the hamburger itself, which made Kang Hyun glance over with a puzzled look. In Sang-woo's mind, his friend's story played like a dream. A bright day at an amusement park where the boy rode on his dad's shoulders while both parents laughed beside him. The family moved off under warm lights, but Sang-woo stood apart in the dim edge of the floor, thinking of his mom stuck in the hospital and his dad working far overseas and feeling how far that kind of happiness was from him. The man in the green cap quietly says that Sang-woo is not just greedy for a burger, he is simply sad and lonely, and Kang Hyun listens with a heavy look. Kang Hyun stares ahead and realizes the burger does not need to be the same as the one in the city, because what really matters is giving that lonely kid a warm memory. The villager insists that Sang-woo is the only child in their town, that they all have to look after him, and he tells Kang Hyun he trusts him to make this work. Kang Hyun watches the man reach for yet another bottle and thinks he never knew things were this hard for Sang-woo, amazed that this talkative villager quietly knows everyone's burdens. As the empty bottles clink at the man's waist, Kang Hyun admits to himself he would have brushed him off as just a drunk if he had not seen how those bottles hang on someone who cares so much. Outside, a lone firefly glows on a leaf, and the calm night settles in after all the talk. Resting his chin on his hand and tapping the table, Kang Hyun thinks that making hamburgers is simple for him, especially after his time as an exchange student in the country where they first became famous. He lets out a tired breath as he remembers that, even after living in the States, he never once went to that famous fast food place, too buried in his studies to try it for himself. Kang Hyun grumbles to himself, wondering why everyone assumes he has tried that famous burger place just because he lived in Seoul. In the end, he knows he has to make the burgers anyway, since this is the least he can do for the people who welcomed him. Soon after, his answer to all their hopes sits on the plate, a thick, glossy burger stacked high with fresh meat, cheese, and bright vegetables, ready to give that lonely kid a memory he will never forget. On the floor, the little white wolf pup pokes its empty bowl with a paw, eyes drooping in pure sadness. When it hears Kang Hyun say there will be no more food, the pup stiffens and stares at the empty bowl in disbelief. Kang Hyun glances back with a sly smile and tells the white pup that instead of getting extra food, it has to help by tasting things for him. The little wolf lights up at the thought, stars shining in its eyes. Flat on its back, the pup stares at the ceiling, stunned by the idea of getting no food at all, then blinks as it remembers it still gets to taste things for him. Kang Hyun watches the pup munch on the burger and notes that, even though he only copied it from a picture, its tail is not wagging as wildly as before. His thoughts jump back to his student days, when he lived in America for cooking and lived on hamburgers while he studied. He remembers landing there with nothing but a suitcase and his love for food, stuffing himself with cheap burgers between classes. Back then he pushed himself in the kitchen like a maniac, and even if it seems foolish now, he had never burned with that kind of passion for anything else. Even after everything, he has to admit it to himself, he really does love cooking. In his mind, the younger chef who once lived for the kitchen stands across from the tired man at the table, and Kang Hyun wonders what that old version of himself would say if he saw how far he has fallen. He rubs his head with a weak laugh, telling himself that his life does not have to look exactly like it did back then. The little white pup sits by the spotless plate with shining eyes and an eager bark, clearly telling Kang Hyun that the burger was perfect. Kang Hyun grabs his apron and ties it tight, as if answering the pup's request with action instead of words. The tiny white pup flops its head on the table, eyes fixed on him, trusting that something even better is on the way. Kang Hyun pulls the bandana over his hair, reminding himself that he has never treated cooking as a half-hearted hobby, and he is not about to start now. The smooth black cooktop waits in front of him, turning this quiet table into a real kitchen once more. The pan hits the heat and flares to life, oil snapping as it spreads across the metal. A thick patty rests on the plate, wrapped in a blanket of melted cheese that shines under the light. Ribbons of sauce spiral through the air, each line landing exactly where he wants it. Crisp lettuce, bright tomato, and sweet onion pile over the cheesy patty as the sauces splash down, turning it into a perfect, over-the-top burger. He cups the warm bun with both hands, feeling the soft give of the bread and the weight of everything packed inside. Sang-hoo sits stiff on the bench, eyes lowered and a bit of sweat on his cheek, like he is not sure if he even deserves something this nice. The adults talk across the table, while Sang-hoo stays curled beside the older woman, the little lamp between them doing nothing to lighten the heavy air. Sang-hoo glances up just a little, and with a shaky breath, thanks them for waiting and admits how much he has been craving that hamburger. Sang-hoo stares at the burger in front of him, eyes huge, like he still cannot believe it is really his. Kang Hyun balances the tray on his shoulder and watches the boy, waiting to see if this simple burger can ease at least a little of that heavy mood. The burger sits on the plate like something from a commercial, cheese dripping, colors bright, every layer begging to be tasted. Light seems to sparkle around the bun, turning a simple meal into the kind of treat a kid might only dream about. Sang-hoo cannot hold it in anymore and gushes over how amazing the burger looks, like it is the best thing he has ever seen. The boy swallows hard, cheeks warm, as Kang Hyun urges him to go ahead and taste it. Sang-hoo grips the burger with both hands and leans in, nerves and hunger mixing as he finally goes for it. He sinks his teeth into the soft bun and stacked fillings, taking a huge first bite that he has been holding back for far too long. In his head, America turns into this huge, shiny place of fireworks and bright lights, the perfect home for a burger this good. Sang-hoo pictures himself standing between giant glass towers, eyes shining as he thinks this taste is 100 times better than any cheap burger he has ever had. Snapped back to the small kitchen, Sang-hoo tugs on Grandma's sleeve, blurting out that this burger tastes incredible. Grandma smiles with her whole face, saying she is just glad Sang-hoo is this happy over a simple meal. The glow in Sang-hoo's eyes softens as another thought slips in, something that has nothing to do with how good the burger tastes. He stares down at the bun, thinking that if he had asked for a burger like this in Seoul, maybe he could be with his mom right now. Grandma's eyes widen, a small drop of sweat on her cheek, as she hears him talk about going up to Seoul where his mom lives. Still staring at the burger, Sang-hoo quietly admits that wanting a burger was really just an excuse to see his mom, and he mumbles an apology. The boy clutches the half-eaten burger, tears spilling as he realizes how badly he wants his mom back in his life. Grandma cups his wet cheeks, asking how long he has been carrying all this hurt by himself. She draws him into her arms and gently strokes his head, softly apologizing for not noticing sooner. Grandma murmurs that someone his age should not have to grow up without his mom and dad and wonders how lonely he must have felt. But Sang-hoo shakes his head hard and insists he is okay living with her. Clinging to her like he might fall, Sang-hoo bawls out an apology and shouts that he really does like living with Grandma. Kang Hyun looks over at the two of them, saying nothing, just letting them have this moment. Still buried in Grandma's shoulder, Sang-hoo sniffles and explains that not right away, but someday soon, he plans to go up to Seoul. Kang Hyun leans forward with a calm look, asking Sang-hoo about this plan to go to Seoul and trying to ease the heavy mood. Sang-hoo looks up at Kang Hyun with wide, wet eyes, asking if he really gets to go with him. Grandma stiffens beside him, just as shocked but already hoping this might lift the boy's heart. Kang Hyun says they can even stop by the burger place Sang-hoo has been dreaming about, adding that he has never eaten there either. He turns the trip into something they can look forward to together, not just a favor. Tears still on his cheeks, Sang-hoo breaks into a huge grin and blurts out that he really wants to go. The promise of that trip suddenly makes his future feel bright instead of heavy. The woman watching them lights up in a chibai doodle, gushing over how sweet Kang Hyan's offer is. Back at the table, Grandma thanks Kang Hyan and shyly asks him to take lots of pictures so she can see everything later. Sang-hoo bounces in his seat, promising to show her every single one when he gets back. Kang Hyan's smile turns a bit stiff as he realizes he might have promised too much, since he once walked away from that very place on purpose. The weight of his own past creeps back in, even while everyone else is excited. Later, Sang-hoo stands pressed against Grandma's side, beaming as he thanks Kang Hyan from the bottom of his heart. Grandma's gentle smile shows how much this simple promise has already healed between them. Kang Hyan straightens up with a steady, almost proud smile, already set on keeping his word and giving them the trip they are dreaming about. Their promise hung in the air as the quiet house sat under a clear blue sky, like even the day itself was backing their plan. Back in the kitchen, Kang Hyan stood by the fridge, chewing on his knuckle as he started thinking about what came next. He opened the fridge and stared at all the packed containers, realizing he had way more leftover ingredients than he thought. As Kang Hyan wondered if he should use all this for a camping trip, the little white pup perked up, eyes shining like it already loved the idea. He rubbed his chin, admitting to himself he had never really gone camping and that once the restaurant opened, chances like this would be gone. A sudden stir behind him made Kang Hyan glance back from the freezer, puzzled by whatever had set the pup off. The white pup trotted closer with its tail wagging and eyes sparkling, acting like an exciting trip had already been decided. Seeing the way the pup's eyes sparkled, Kang Hyan tensed up, wondering why it looked like he had just promised a trip to the other world when he had never said that at all. Kang Hyan tried to set things straight in his head, reminding himself that he was only going camping, not running off on some grand otherworld journey again. A moment later, Kang Hyan was already sitting in a sunlit clearing of the other world, the little white pup wagging in front of him as the forest rustled softly around their new campsite. Looking around, Kang Hyan admitted to himself that he had come to this place more often than he went shopping back home, and the deep, steady quiet of the woods made that feel strangely okay. He let the thought trail off and reached for his bags instead, fingers moving through familiar camping gear as he started laying everything out on the grass. Kang Hyan paused for a moment, taking in the soft light and thick green around him, quietly admitting that the view here was really something special. With the view admired, he grabbed a bundle of tent poles and tried to remember how they were supposed to connect together. Kang Hyan knelt over the collapsed tent with question marks practically hanging over his head, while the white pup forgot all about camping and bounded after a bright blue butterfly. After a bit of fumbling, Kang Hyan finally got the tent standing, and right beside him the pup froze in surprise as the butterfly calmly settled on its nose, turning the whole clearing into a quiet little slice of peace. Kang Hyan braced himself and tried to force the stubborn tent into shape, breathing hard with effort while the little white pup just bolted after the blue butterfly without a care. After wrestling with the fabric and poles, Kang Hyan dropped onto the grass, legs spread out as he tried to catch his breath. The tent now stood clean and steady in the middle of the bright clearing, proof that he had finally won that little fight. Kang Hyan slumped back on his hands, sweat on his cheek, admitting to himself that pitching a simple tent had taken way more out of him than he ever expected. He lay back and stared up, letting his body relax as a different kind of emptiness started to nudge at him. Lying there in the warm light beside his new tent, Kang Hyan finally admitted what his body had been yelling for a while now. He was starving and it was time to cook. Soon a deep red stew was bubbling in his pot, thick chunks rising and sinking in the broth as the rich smell began to spread through the campsite. Kang Hyan steadied a white bowl in one hand and filled it with the steaming stew, the glossy broth and soft pieces sliding in like a promise of real comfort. Kang Hyan sat back in his chair and started on the stew, letting the warmth spread through him while the forest around the tent stayed soft and quiet. Two little forest critters crept up to the pot, noses twitching as the smell of the rich red stew pulled them in. Kang Hyan chewed slowly, feeling the texture and heat, trying to read the dish with his mouth even if his taste still was not fully back. Wondering if these little guys were used to raw food, Kang Hyan still laid thick marinated pieces on the hot grill, choosing to share only meat he had cooked himself. Once the meat was done, Kang Hyan broke it into small chunks and tossed a few pieces toward the two critters watching him with wide, hungry eyes. Before the meat even reached the grass, a huge blue bird shot down in front of Kang Hyan and snatched the pieces, leaving the two little critters staring in shock. The big bird beat its wings hard and climbed into the bright sky, carrying its stolen snack away like it had pulled this trick 100 times before. Kang Hyan stood beside the small critter and looked up at the empty sky, both of them silently accepting that their first try at sharing dinner had just been hijacked. A bright blue butterfly settled on a white flower, sipping calmly like nothing in this forest ever rushed. One of the little critters clutched a new chunk of meat with both paws while the other lay on its back, grumbling but clearly relieved they had not gone hungry after all. Kang Hyan leaned back and stared up. He just listened to the soft rustle of the trees and felt the quiet start to sink into him. Sitting there with nothing to do, he just listened to the soft rustle of the trees and felt the quiet start to sink into him. Kang Hyan slouched in his chair beside the tent, letting the warm breeze, birds, and soft light do all the work of making this lazy break feel perfect. Above him, the thick leaves glowed in the light, turning the whole forest into a soft green roof. The huge trunks rose around the clearing while the branches swayed slowly, as if the whole forest was breathing with him. Sunlight poured over the rocks, trees, and tiny blue flowers, and the clearing felt less like a campsite and more like a place made to patch a tired heart back together. Kang Hyan frowned as he suddenly noticed that the rice cake he had just put in the soup was nowhere to be seen. He calmly scooped up another ladle of the rich red soup, already thinking that this was the perfect time to build a bonfire and really lean into the camping mood. Across the clearing, the boy had his cheeks stuffed full, guarding his bowl of rice cake soup like treasure while he shoveled in another bite. From deep inside the bushes, something peered out at the boy eating in the sunlit grass, the bright clearing framed by thick, dark leaves. Kang Hyun twisted in his chair toward the bushes, certain now that the little thief he was looking for was crouched right there. He lifted a bowl he had stacked high with spicy cabbage and told the lurker there was more than enough for them if they came out. Small beastly paw shot out with wild speed, swiping toward the food before Kang Hyun could even pull his hand back. Kang Hyun's eyes flew wide as the paw flashed past, far faster and bolder than he had expected from his hidden guest. Kang Hyun jerked his body back as the white blur slashed past his chest, way too fast for him to grab. For a second, he realized this little thief moved more like a wild animal than a hungry guest. The beast kid's momentum tore long tracks through the grass as it slid back, claws ripping up the ground. Even missing the food, that one rush showed just how strong it was. By the tent, Kang Hyun stood with his bowl in one hand and a ladle in the other, staring at the small beast child crouched across the grass. Between them, the stove and gear suddenly felt like a thin line keeping his quiet camp from turning wild. Kang Hyun narrowed his eyes, a bead of sweat sliding down his cheek as it clicked that this thing was not just here for rice cake. He could tell now that there was a sharp mind behind those movements. The beast girl dropped to all fours, claws digging into the dirt, golden eyes burning with hunger as drool slipped from her fangs. She looked less like a child and more like a starving hunter who had finally found a meal she refused to lose. Kang Hyun finally understood that the wild thief in front of him was a young girl, not just some random creature. That one fact made this hungry charge feel a lot more serious. The beast girl sprang forward on all fours, claws tearing at the ground as her golden eyes locked onto the food like prey she refused to lose. Kang Hyun stared down at her, sweat running down his cheek as it hit him that this crazed attacker was actually a young girl. The girl's furry ears twitched sharply, her whole body still coiled like she might leap the moment he slipped up. Her tail puffed out and stood straight, the rough shirt hanging off her thin frame making her look more like a cornered animal than a child. Kang Hyun tightened his grip on the steaming bowl, eyeing her carefully while wondering how he was supposed to feed someone who looked ready to bite his hand off. He wondered if she was one of those half-human, half-beast types he had only ever seen in movies, and the thought made this quiet forest feel strangely unreal. The beast girl dropped even lower and let out a deep growl, warning him that the next person who reached for that food would be treated like an enemy. Her clawed hand sank into the grass, muscles tight, ready to spring again if anyone tried to take her meal away. The beast girl exploded into the air and dropped toward Kang Hyun like a wild animal, claws reaching for him and whatever he was holding. Kang Hyun jerked his body aside, clutching the rice cake to his chest as the beast girl shot past his legs instead of crashing into him. The beast girl hit the ground and tumbled across the grass, her limbs flailing as her wild charge completely fell apart. She dug her claws into the ground, carving long tracks through the grass as she forced her body to stop and twist back toward the food. Kang Hyun's face tightened with worry as he clutched the white rice cake, praying this little lifesaver would help him calm her down instead of turning this into a real fight. The beast girl crouched low in the grass, growling at him like a cornered cub, while Kang Hyun stood a few steps away, gripping the bowl as if it were a shield. Kang Hyun swallowed hard, then forced himself to relax, deciding to treat her like a hungry kid instead of a monster. He slowly stretched out the bowl piled with spicy rice cakes and asked if she was hungry, and the beast girl froze, eyes locked on the food instead of his throat. Kang Hyun flung the bowl of spicy rice cakes toward the beast girl, telling her she could have it if she just went back. He kept his body ready to move, in case she chose to pounce instead of listen. The beast girl crept up to the bowl, muscles tight, as if it might still be a trap. Hunger burned in her eyes, but she kept her claws ready. She leaned in over the bowl, staring hard at the steaming red sauce, her nose twitching as the rich smell wrapped around her. Bowl of rice cake shone in the light, thick red sauce bubbling around soft pieces and green onions, looking like the best thing in the world to a starving kid. Her lips parted and drool slipped down her chin, her body giving up any act of calm in front of the food. The beast girl leaned forward and took a piece straight into her mouth without grabbing at the bowl, and Kang Hyun watched, a bit surprised that she was not tearing into it with her hands. Inside her mouth, the hidden heat of the chili woke up like a tiny monster, ready to blow her head off with spice. The beast girl jerked up with a wild scream, eyes bulging and sweat pouring as the fire on her tongue exploded, the rice cake still clutched in her shaking hand. The beast girl rolled on the grass, kicking and grabbing her face like her mouth was on fire, while Kang Hyun stared at her and the untouched bowl, unsure if he had gone too far with the heat. Flat on her back, the beast girl let out a raw howl, claws curling as the spicy burn tore through her mouth. After a moment, her face slowly relaxed, and the beast girl blinked up at the sky, tasting the lingering heat instead of just fighting it. Her mind, pieces of meat, peppers, onions, and green onions spun around her, each one matching the strong flavors still dancing on her tongue. Her thoughts locked onto the rich meat and the bright mixed chili, the pair that gave the stew its deep taste and fierce kick. She dropped back onto all fours, wiped her mouth with her arm, and leaned in toward the bowl again, eyes locked on the spicy rice cakes like she had already accepted the burn. Soon she was shoveling the rice cakes into her mouth, panting from the heat but refusing to stop, and Kang Hyun watched, amazed that she was eating it up so happily. Looking at her red face and busy hands, Kang Hyun relaxed a little, thinking that even with all that spice, the stew must fit her taste perfectly. The bushes near the campsite shook softly, as if something small and fast was pushing its way through the leaves. A tiny white wolf pup burst out of the bushes, tongue out and eyes shining, racing toward camp like it knew dinner was waiting. While Kang Hyun promised to warm up stew for the pup, the beast girl dropped low and sprinted off with her empty bowl, glaring like she refused to share a single bite. Out of nowhere, the beast girl was launched forward, her bowl spinning through the air as the calm mealtime blew up into chaos. With the pup clutched in his arms, Kang Hyun froze and stared ahead, a bead of sweat on his cheek, as if only now noticing how a simple meal had turned into a full-on brawl. The beast girl shot back up with her nose red and stinging, eyes wet and teeth bared, clearly ready to jump the pup for bumping into her. Kang Hyun grabbed the pup and held it high against his chest as the beast girl lunged at them, yelling for both of them to calm down before someone really got hurt. A towering beast warrior with silver hair loomed over them, his sharp eyes taking in the mess at Kang Hyun's feet while the young beast girl peered down beside him, still flushed from the fight. The beast warrior hooked a hand into the girl's fur vest and yanked her back, calling Kang Hyun a soft human as if warning her that picking a fight here was pointless. Without giving her a choice, the warrior tucked the squirming girl under his arm and started walking off, clearly deciding this silly fight with a camper and a pup was over. In a blink, the pair turned into a streak over the treetops, the warrior bounding through the forest with the girl still tucked under his arm until they vanished into the green. Kang Hyun stayed in the clearing with the white pup hanging in his arm, staring at the empty space they had left behind and letting the quiet rush back in. Looking up at the sky with the pup's paw mark still on his cheek, Kang Hyun wondered how many different races actually lived in this strange world that kept showing him new faces. The view shifted back to his sleepy countryside village, greenhouses and low houses resting under clear blue skies and drifting cherry blossoms. Inside the restaurant, Kang Hyun pushed a mop across the tiles, the little white pup trotting beside the wet streaks as he got the place ready for the day ahead. Kang Hyun leaned on the mop handle and stared upward, letting it sink in that tomorrow was finally opening day. The little white pup scooted across the floor on a rag, happily turning Kang Hyun's cleaning into its own game. Outside, a bright banner on the sleek city building still celebrated his old achievements, a sharp contrast to the quiet country restaurant he was cleaning now. Grandma Park stood outside with her hands folded behind her back, eyeing the building with the calm curiosity of someone sizing up a new spot in town. Her lips pressed together as she studied the place, already forming her own quiet judgment about this new restaurant and its young owner. Back inside, Kang Hyun scrunched up his face and went over his list again, ticking off the remodeling, the stocked ingredients, and the last of the cleaning. Satisfied at last, Kang Hyun clenched his fist around the mop handle and fired himself up, sure that his preparations were perfect and tomorrow's opening would go smoothly. As Kang Hyun stood there buzzing with confidence, Grandma Park slipped through the doorway behind him, ready to see for herself how this new place would turn out. Grandma Park stared straight ahead, looking annoyed that he had just told her the restaurant only opened tomorrow. Kang Hyun froze with the mop still in his hands, realizing her simple question made his big plan sound pretty stupid. Kang Hyun let out a tired sigh and told her to sit down, already knowing there was no way he could turn Grandma Park away now. Grandma Park shuffled inside with her hands tucked behind her back, slowly looking over every corner of the dining room. The tabletops gleamed without a speck of dust, proof of how hard Kang Hyun had scrubbed the place for tomorrow. Grandma Park narrowed her eyes at an old piece of furniture and asked why he had kept that worn thing instead of throwing it out. She tilted her head back and slowly traced the lines of the wall and ceiling, letting old memories of this place rise up. Standing by the sunlit window, Grandma Park looked around and quietly admitted to herself that, deep down, this place was still the same as before. Kang Hyun fixed his cap and asked Grandma Park if she had come here back when it was still just a tea house. Grandma Park barely reacted and instead asked what he planned to sell in this place now. From across the room, Kang Hyun told her he was planning to serve Western food, things like pasta and pizza. Calling pasta those American-style noodles, Grandma Park dragged out a chair and told him to bring her a plate. Kang Hyun began to ask what kind of pasta she liked, but when Grandma Park told him to decide on his own, he nodded and accepted the challenge. In the quiet kitchen, Kang Hyun tied down his focus and began prepping ingredients for her pasta. He squeezed out rich tomato sauce, deciding that a simple tomato pasta would be the easiest for Grandma Park to enjoy on her first try. The dry noodles spread out in the boiling water, and with that, Kang Hyun's first pasta for this little shop began to take shape. Fresh broccoli and strips of bacon hit the cold water as he washed them clean, getting every piece ready for Grandma Park's first plate. Tomato pieces dropped into the pale liquid, dyeing it red as the base of a thick, rich sauce started to come together. He tossed the noodles through the glossy tomato sauce, folding in bacon and broccoli, determined to make this first dish in his shop perfect for her. A neat mound of tomato pasta sat in the center of the white plate, steam curling up as if showing off his work. He set the tomato pasta in front of Grandma Park and gently invited her to enjoy the very first dish of his new place. As Grandma Park picked up a bundle of noodles, Kang Hyun watched with a tight grip on his order pad, uneasy because he had not checked the taste himself. While she tasted the pasta, he reminded himself that this recipe had earned him plenty of praise before, trying to steady his nerves. Kang Hyun let out a slow breath and managed a small smile, convincing himself that with his hands, there was no way this pasta could turn out bad. Grandma Park set her chopsticks down over the empty plate, her face calm and hard to read, making it impossible to tell what she really thought of the pasta. In the corner of her mouth curled up, a tiny smile that said the taste had passed her test. Kang Hyun stiffened, sweat running down his cheek as he realized she was seriously asking what she owed him. A figure stopped outside the glass door, clearly drawn in by the bright new banner hanging above the place. The man in the green cap pushed the door open with a grin and called into the quiet restaurant, checking if anyone was around. Inside, the farmer blinked when he spotted Grandma Park and asked what brought her here, and she calmly told him she had just come to eat at the new place. As she strolled out with her hands clasped behind her back, Grandma Park mentioned that the real opening was tomorrow, but added that she had already eaten her fill and was heading home. Kang Hyun stood by the table, staring at the half-finished pasta, while the farmer muttered that Grandma Park could be pretty blunt, and the empty restaurant suddenly felt even colder. The farmer leans over the plate with wide, tired eyes, stunned that Grandma Park really ate the pasta at all. Kang Hyun stares down, a bead of sweat sliding past his eye as he wonders why she left so much on the plate. His hand curls into a tight fist, holding back the sting and forcing himself to stay calm. He studies the untouched red pasta, trying to figure out what went wrong with a dish he thought was perfect. The farmer steps toward Kang Hyun, who is curled up in the corner like all the light has been sucked out of him. He calls out carefully, trying to pull the young chef out of that dark cloud. The farmer frowns, a bead of sweat on his cheek, and asks if something went wrong with getting the place ready. Kang Hyun lowers his eyes and says the preparations are fine, then adds that the real problem is something else entirely. The farmer squeezes his eyes shut as Kang Hyun tells him he plans to close the restaurant starting today, even though it has never really opened. At the table, Kang Hyun sits hunched over while the farmer throws up a hand, saying he gets it now, and guessing Kang Hyun wants to quit because Grandma Park left so much food. The farmer waves it off, saying no cook can make every single person happy, and joking that Kang Hyun is acting like he did not already win a huge cooking contest, while Kang Hyun just glares, cheeks burning. Relaxing a little, the farmer tells him to just shrug it off, saying Grandma Park probably did not come here for the taste of the pasta in the first place. Kang Hyun lifts his head, eyes softening, as the farmer starts to talk about a man who used to come here all the time, making Kang Hyun wonder who he is talking about. The farmer talks about her husband, saying that back when this was a tea house, he came so often that he almost wore out the doorstep. The farmer explains that after losing him, Grandma Park mostly stayed home by herself, and he has not seen her around in a long time. Kang Hyun listens and quietly guesses that Grandma Park still thinks about her husband all the time. The farmer says the ones who are gone, and the people still here should keep living instead of holding on to the past. The farmer adds that none of this is Kang Hyun's fault, saying Grandma Park is just very picky with food, and with everything she is going through, he should not take her reaction to heart. Kang Hyun thinks there is no way he can just ignore it after hearing all that, and the whole thing leaves his head pounding. Overwhelmed, Kang Hyun heads back to his beloved otherworld camp, hoping the quiet woods will help him sort out his thoughts. Near the camp, a huge rabbit beast and a white wolf pup look around in wonder, as if even the wild animals feel how safe and calm this place has become. Kang Hyun leans back in his camp chair, stretching hard as he thinks how shocked he was when Grandma Park left so much of his pasta untouched. And now, after hearing about her husband, he just feels sorry for her. He stares up at the flowers above, still stunned that she walked away from the one dish he was most sure about, the pasta he thought could never fail. As he lies there, his thoughts shift, and he wonders if next time he should cook her some warm Korean food instead, something that might comfort her more than fancy pasta. His gaze catches a small beast child sprawled on a tree branch above, peeking down at him through the hanging blossoms like they have been there for a while. The little beast child stiffens on the branch, ears twitching and sweat beading as they realize the human below has spotted them. Kang Hyun looks up with dull, tired eyes, recognizing the same clingy beast kid from before and already feeling worn out. The beast child leans over the branch, shouting down at him in a mix of anger and embarrassment, as if scolding him for showing up here again. Still hugging the branch, the little beast kid peeks down at him with a worried face, acting tough but clearly too nervous to climb down or run away. Kang Hyun leans back in his chair, letting the kid rant while he stares at the sky, too drained to bother answering. From a branch above, the little beast child glares down as Kang Hyun crouches with the white pup, already treating it like a close friend. The beast kid finally scrambles down the tree, pretending to be annoyed even as the pup's bright eyes and wagging tail pull them closer. Kang Hyun pulls out a thick marbled slice of meat, the surface shining like it was made for the grill. The chef's knife glides through the meat in smooth strokes, each cut clean and even. No time, a tidy row of glossy slices rest on the board, the meat so fresh it almost shines. Kang Hyun hauls out his portable stove, setting it down like this quiet field is his own little kitchen. He digs into his bag and pulls out a jar of rich red seasoning, already planning the sauce that will tie the whole dish together. Kang Hyun decides to leave out the spicy pepper this time and reaches for the butter instead, already planning the next step. The beast kid stiffens behind him, remembering that evil red heat from before and eyeing the chef like his life depends on that choice. Butter melts and foams in the pan as sliced mushrooms hit the heat. Kang Hyun sprinkles in just enough salt and pepper, letting the rich smell roll out over the field. The creamy sauce thickens to a glossy gold, then slides out of the pan in a smooth sheet. It pools on the plate, already shining like it belongs in a fancy restaurant, not a campsite. He tosses in the cooked pasta, the golden strands catching the light as they fall. The noodles land in the sauce and start soaking up every bit of flavor. Last, he lays the juicy steak slices across the mound of pasta, turning simple noodles into a full feast. The finished steak cream pasta gleams on the plate, looking way too good for a quiet patch of grass. The beast kid drops low over the plate, a warning rumble in their throat as if anyone might dare touch it. Kang Hyun just tells them to dig in before someone else decides to swipe that perfect steak. The little beast leans in, nose twitching at the smell, but their mind flashes back to that smug red pepper that once burned their mouth. Even while Kang Hyun casually greets them, they stall, torn between fear and the promise of that creamy steak. In the end, hunger wins, and the Beast Kid lunges forward and bites deep into a red-coated piece of steak. Eyes squeeze shut, they brace themselves for whatever flavor hits next. The Beast Kid's golden eye flies open, all fear forgotten as the taste slams into them. In their head, the steak turns into a holy gift, something so good even a tiny angel cat would cling to it and never let go. In that fantasy, more angel cats pour creamy sauce over endless noodles, as if the whole dish has been blessed for being unbelievably tasty. The little beast stares up with shining eyes and a dropped jaw, letting out a joyful cry as the simple truth hits them. This is insanely good. The Beast Kid lunges so hard for another bite that they flip forward, ending up with their whole face buried in the bowl while Kang Hyun just watches, half amused. Licking the plate clean, the Beast Kid perks up, amazed that nothing burns this time and mumbling that it is tasty and they want more. Kang Hyun can tell, even if the kid cannot explain it well, that they have completely fallen for the creamy pasta. Leaning back in his chair, Kang Hyun studies the kid's wagging tail and soft smile, noting that this slow, happy satisfaction runs far deeper than their wild reaction to the spicy dish. Still, as he looks up at the clear sky, Kang Hyun admits to himself that this kind of pasta is not really his style, even if it turned out to be perfect for that little beast. Kang Hyun lifts another bite of pasta and admits to himself that the rich cream and heavy steak feel like too much together, a mix that does not really suit his own taste. As he stares up at the flowers above the camp, he decides this pasta is closer to a playful fusion dish than anything a strict traditional chef would serve. The little Beast Kid lets out a sharp, cat-like cry, snapping him out of his thoughts and begging for his attention again. Kang Hyun watches the Beast Kid crawl up to him like a spoiled pet and grumbles in his head that this is the same little terror who came at him so hard last time. Seeing the Beast Kid nuzzle his leg with a blissful face, Kang Hyun figures the pasta must have hit the mark and reminds himself that it does not matter if a recipe is fusion or classic, as long as it fits the person eating it. The young chef reaches down and ruffles the Beast Kid's hair, wordlessly accepting their thanks and letting their joy sink into him. Kang Hyun looks down at the small beast and smiles, feeling lighter as he holds onto that thought that pleasing the eater is all that really matters. His eye widens as it finally hits him that food only needs to taste good to the one eating it, not to some judge in his head. The Beast Kid blinks up at him, puzzled as he absent-mindedly reaches out and plays with their ear. Bags stuffed with fresh spring greens sit ready, the first step for his new idea. Cold water rushes over the leaves as he rinses them clean, already sorting out which ones will work best. Kang Hyun sorts through the pile, picking just the right spring greens, knowing their sharp taste can easily take over a dish. Grinning with fresh energy, the young chef holds out the plates and urges his little tester to try this rice cake version and tell him how it tastes. The little Beast Kid stares at the plate with a flat, doubtful look, clearly not sharing his excitement. The Beast Kid pointedly ignores the plate, and Kang Hyun sits there in silence, watching his tester refuse to take even a single bite. Kang Hyun touches his cheek and thinks it over, telling himself he can handle this without rice cake, since every flavor of these ingredients is still burned into his memory. He grips his arm and lets out a shaky smile, admitting he cannot lean on rice cake forever and needs to trust his own cooking again. Kang Hyun posts a notice pushing the opening to next week, blaming vague personal reasons while secretly thinking a chef who cannot please his first guest has no right to open at all. Outside, the farmer neighbor stands by the door in the bright sun, his easy smile completely at odds with the heavy message on the notice. Back at her house, Grandma Park sits on the wooden bench by the open blue gate, resting her hands on her knees as she calmly watches the empty street. Her gaze turns soft and distant, as if she is replaying the taste of that pasta and the look on the young chef's face in her mind. A pair of white sneakers stop just outside her gate, the young chef finally dragging himself out of his house to face her. The farmer swings the blue gate open with a grin and tells Grandma Park she should come outside more, saying there is plenty of fun waiting beyond her yard. Grandma Park eyes him with mild suspicion and asks why he showed up so suddenly, while the farmer sits nearby and jokes that a neighbor should be allowed to stop in without a reason. Laughing hard, the farmer tells her that the young chef was completely stunned after she walked out leaving that plate of so-called American noodles half-eaten. Grandma Park sits on the porch and wonders why leaving a dish she did not like could have shocked the young chef so much. Her eyes narrow a little as she listens, acting like she has nothing better to do anyway and letting the idea of a second visit roll around in her head. Across the yard, the farmer leans on the gate and tells her that if she goes back, things might turn out better this time. The farmer smiles and points out that the restaurant is not even far, asking if it is really that hard to step outside and give the boy another chance. Still laughing, the farmer leans in through the gate and tells her that taking that small step might end up being worth it. The farmer walks down the street, leaving Grandma Park sitting alone in the wide, quiet yard, his suggestion hanging in the air. Her feet rest just above the ground, her legs slightly drawn in, as if she is caught between staying seated and finally getting up. Back in the kitchen, Kang Hyun wipes the sweat from his forehead with a weary sigh, the weight of that unfinished plate still pressing on his mind. Kang Hyun sets the plate down and feels sure that building the dish around a single main vegetable was the right call this time. He thinks about how he added seafood to the mix, trusting that the fresh ocean taste and the sweet vegetable would balance each other perfectly. The pasta shines on the plate, clams and greens tucked neatly between the noodles, looking like something that could win back anyone's trust. Even with the perfect plate ready, he feels stuck on one thing, finding a way to ask Grandma Park to come back without making it awkward. The bell over the front door starts ringing, snapping him out of his thoughts about invitations. Kang Hyun peeks out from the kitchen, blinking in surprise as he wonders who could be visiting now. Grandma Park stands in the doorway with a steady look, having actually come all the way back to his little shop. Kang Hyun steps out with a wide smile, quickly assuring her that the restaurant is open and that he is ready to cook for her again. Grandma Park sits stiffly at the table, hands resting on her lap while the untouched glass and neatly placed utensils wait in front of her. She keeps her eyes lowered, the warm light from the window wrapping around her while her thoughts grow heavier than the silence. Looking at the neatly set table, she wonders if Kang Hyun somehow knew she would come and had already finished cooking for her. Sitting alone in the bright room, she braces herself, thinking it will just be those heavy American noodles again that she never liked. Fingers curl against her knee as she starts to regret coming at all, half thinking she should just stand up and walk out. Then a gentle warmth rises in her mind, like flowers opening around her, and an old, softer feeling starts to push through her doubt. Golden petals and bright branches seem to wrap around her in her mind, and she slowly lets that calm, hopeful feeling steady her breathing. Her eyes lift and widen as a rich, unfamiliar smell reaches her, pulling her attention away from her worries and straight toward the kitchen. Kang Hyun slides a steaming plate of bright pasta onto the table in front of her, the smell growing even stronger. The young chef sets the plate down with a small, careful smile, thanking Grandma Park for waiting as she studies him with tired, curious eyes. Sits a neat, flowery mound of filling in her golden chest noodles, green strips, and clams, shining softly like he built the whole thing just to win her over. Her eyes catch the brown flower bud resting on top, and she realizes he used daylily, a taste tied to old memories rather than some foreign sauce. Looking at the clams tucked between the strands and the daylily on top, she thinks back to the thick American noodles she never liked and wonders how different this careful mix will be. Chopsticks trembling just a little in her hand, Grandma Park takes a slow breath and tells herself that even if she hated the last noodles, this one might be better. She lifts a bundle of shining noodles with a strip of green tucked in, closes her eyes, and brings it to her lips, ready to find out if this taste can make up for the last one. As the flavor spreads across her tongue, Grandma Park's eyes grow heavy, like she is sinking into an old, quiet memory of fresh spring greens. The restaurant fades away, and in her mind the air turns bright and blue, filled with cherry blossoms and petals floating like they are welcoming her back. In that memory, spring is bursting everywhere, flowers shining in every color as if the whole world has woken up just to show off for her. She sits on a bench under the blossoms beside the old man, thinking how the flowers seem thicker and brighter than the year before, and feeling quietly happy just to share that view with him. The old man breaks off a tiny branch and holds the blossoms up to Grandma Park, gently asking if she has time to spare on this pretty day. With the blossoms above them, he suggests they sit down somewhere cozy and share a cup of tea together, turning the simple outing into a gentle date. Grandma Park asks why he is suddenly being so sweet, and he just laughs it off, saying that with spring in full bloom like this, it feels right to enjoy it together. The park and the bench fade away, and Grandma Park finds herself back at the table, her hand resting over the plate as the taste of the noodles and that old spring day quietly blend together inside her. Back in the bright little restaurant, Grandma Park sits with the plate of noodles in front of her, the warm light and hanging leaves making the place feel like spring all over again. She twirls the golden noodles with her chopsticks, eyeing the clams and greens as she wonders when this kind of dish even showed up here. Kang Hyun rubs the back of his neck, a little embarrassed, and admits that this pasta was not on the menu before and that he put it together just for her. The young chef looks at her and says he went through the trouble because he wanted, more than anything, to serve her something she could truly enjoy. His lips press together for a moment, like he is weighing his next words and the promise he is making to himself. She sits facing the bright, hazy light as his words about trying new dishes and not leaning on the same old rice cake sink in, the empty chair beside her making the room feel even more still. Kang Hyun lowers his gaze, telling himself that his first guest here should be pleased by his own skill alone, not by the shortcut that once saved him. Grandma Park tightens her grip on the chopsticks and lifts a neat bundle of noodles, ready to give this honest, hard one dish a fair try. Grandma Park leans in over the plate, lifting the noodles, while Kang Hyun stands frozen beside her, watching every tiny move like his whole future depends on this one bite. She raises the golden noodles and greens to her lips and finally takes a full bite, letting the flavors hit her all at once. Kang Hyun stares eyes wide, trying to read every tiny change in her face while his heart pounds in his chest. Before he even notices it happening, the plate is scraped clean, only a tiny piece of pasta left between her chopsticks. Grandma Park sets her chopsticks down by the almost empty plate and looks up at him, calm but clearly moved by what she just ate. Kang Hyun blurts out that she actually finished the whole thing, then quickly adds that it is fine and she does not need to pay, more focused on her reaction than on money. Grandma Park closes her eyes and calmly tells him that a proper restaurant owner should not refuse to take payment from a guest. She adds that she ate so well thanks to him that of course she has to pay, making it clear this meal was worth every one to her. Kang Hyun freezes for a second, stunned that she is scolding him for treating his own food like it is worth less than it is. Grandma Park calmly tells him not only to take her money, but to put this pasta on the menu, treating it as a dish good enough to carry his place. Her words sink in, and Kang Hyun finally lets out a real smile, feeling like his food and his little restaurant might actually have a future. Later, in the bright forest of the other world, Kang Hyun stretches out on a hammock beside the dozing white pup, letting the quiet green around him wash away the weight of the day. High above his hammock, a huge red-winged bird glides over the clearing, circling as if it has also noticed this quiet little camp. The bird dips lower through the trees, its bright tail cutting across the green, ready to break the lazy stillness of the afternoon. Lying back with a carefree laugh, Kang Hyun thinks about how he managed to satisfy his very first guest and finally open his restaurant, deciding that from here he can slow down and focus on healing himself. Watching the pup sleep, Kang Hyun jokes that the rice cake back home throws a fit if he does not visit this place often anyway, so he might as well keep coming here to rest and cook. Kang Hyun throws his arms up with a huge grin, deciding that today is made for doing nothing but relaxing. He lifts the dark feather toward the bright sky, wondering if that huge bird from before is still flying around up there. Shape crosses his sunglasses, and Kang Hyun squints up, suddenly noticing something moving high above the trees. Randolph lowers his arm with a tight jaw, annoyed that his throw was off and the bird he was tracking got away. Pushing through the bushes, Randolph grumbles about losing his lunch, then stops cold when he spots Kang Hyun sprawled on the grass in the middle of a half-collapsed. Kang Hyun stays face down as his body gives a tiny shake, his sunglasses tossed aside, looking like a guy who just learned the hard way that relaxing with his eyes closed has limits. A little later, Kang Hyun sits across from Randolph with the pup between them, chatting about how beautiful this spot is, and making sure he remembers the hunter's name right. Randolph waves his hands with an easy laugh, telling Kang Hyun he is not on patrol this time and just came out here to hunt a bit for himself. The little white wolf tilts its head and yips, clearly curious and ready for whatever fun the adults are planning. Randolph lights up at the pup's interest and promises to treat them to a good meal if they join him this time. He eagerly suggests that all three of them head out together, turning this quiet break into a full hunting trip. Kang Hyun just stares back with a blank face, making it clear he has zero interest in moving from his peaceful spot. A moment later, Kang Hyun stands there with a bow and arrows, face still deadpan, silently mourning the end of his healing time. Crouched behind the bushes with the pup while Kang Hyun waits behind them, Randolph explains that this stretch of forest is a favorite spot for something called jumping birds. Kang Hyun tilts his head, clearly puzzled by the name, so Randolph tells him to look ahead to see one for himself. All three of them ease up over the bushes, eyes fixed on the open field as they search for the strange birds Randolph talked about. Out in the bright field, a whole flock of pink puffball birds wanders around without a care in the world. Up close, their round pink bodies look so soft and puffy that they almost seem like walking cotton candy. Seeing how harmless they look, Kang Hyun lets out a weak groan, already feeling bad about taking down something that cute. Randolph calmly tells him that the birds only look fluffy and that, in truth, they are a short-haired species, which makes Kang Hyun blink in confusion. Out in the grass, one bird lazily refuses to budge while another tries to shove it along, making them look even more like harmless, spoiled pets. Randolph narrows his eye, his easy mood gone as he focuses on the birds with a serious look. In a blur of motion, the pink fluff parts, and a wall of hard muscle surges out from inside the bird's body. The whole flock erupts into towering, muscle-packed bird beasts, their bodies nothing but tightly packed muscle hidden under that pink fluff. Kang Hyun stiffens, sweat running down his face as he realizes Randolph actually expects him to take down those monsters. Randolph bursts forward toward the muscle birds with the little white wolf racing at his heels, shouting for Kang Hyun to cover him from behind. Kang Hyun fumbles for his bow, thinking back to the rushed lesson Randolph gave him and cursing that if he learned this fast, he would have gone pro long ago. He sucks in a breath trying to steady his nerves, then yanks at the bowstring and groans when it barely moves, shocked at how hard it is just to pull it back. The rookie archer sets an arrow to the string with shaking fingers, pulling it back as he tries to line it up with the charging beasts. Kang Hyun grits his teeth, hauls the string to his cheek, and releases, sending his first shot screaming toward the target. The arrow rips away from his bow in a sharp burst, faster than he expected after all that strain. The shaft slams into the grass with a sharp burst, landing just shy of the muscle bird and making Kang Hyun groan at how close it was. By the time Kang Hyun lowered the bow, Randolph already had the muscle bird in a chokehold, and the little white wolf was yanking its tail like crazy, making it clear they never really needed his shot. The little wolf's eyes bulged as it remembered how close that arrow came, its tiny body shaking with a hurt, over-the-top sense of betrayal toward Kang Hyun. Kang Hyun drooped with shame, sweat sliding down his cheek as he muttered a weak apology, knowing he had almost skewered his own teammate. Later by the fire, Randolph watched the roasting meat with a pleased grin, then glanced back at Kang Hyun and asked if he was really in any shape to eat. The hunter pointed out that Kang Hyun's arm was shaking so hard it looked like it might fall off. Kang Hyun clutched his trembling arm and tried to play it off, saying he could handle this much and that there was something more important to worry about anyway. Randolph laughed as the fat sizzled over the flames, turning the skewers with the easy joy of someone sure his campfire feast would hit the spot. As the greasy smell rushed into his nose, Kang Hyun clenched his teeth, thinking the food reeked but forcing himself to bear it so he would not insult the man who cooked for him. Randolph finally pulled the meat from the fire, the whole chunk shining with grease on the skewer like he had just unveiled his masterpiece. Kang Hyun sat on the log with a heavy skewer in his hand, staring at the extra piece on the plate and realizing the little white wolf had slipped off somewhere, leaving him to face this test alone. He lifted the roast to his mouth and took a bite anyway, bracing himself for whatever flavor might hit him. His eyes flew wide as the flavor spread over his tongue, stunned that even with his ruined sense of taste he could still tell this was just plain awful. Randolph laughed hard, scratching his head as Kang Hyun tried to explain that even bad flavor felt like progress, and the hunter joked that this was nothing worth getting so worked up. Pumped up, the hunter reached for another hunk of meat, and bragged that now it was his turn to really show what he could do at the fire. Kang Hyun lurched to his feet, sweat beading as he tried to stop him, thinking that if he could not even taste this right, he had no way to guide or fix the flavor. His lips tightened as the thought hit him hard. Without being able to truly taste, how was he supposed to judge any dish at all? Kang Hyun's fingers tightened around the greasy skewer as it hit him that even now he was still overthinking everything. Yet this mess had just proved he still had the skills to cook. Fueled by that thought, Kang Hyun shot to his feet, and Randolph stared up at him, startled by the sudden burst of energy. Kang Hyun broke into a wide grin, hand on his chest, and told Randolph he would take that meat and turn it into a real dish for him. Kang Hyun stepped toward the fire, hand reaching out, and Randolph stared up at him, shocked by how suddenly the quiet camper had taken charge. Kang Hyun reminded him that he had already said it before. Cooking was his job, and this was where he knew what he was doing. With a bright grin, Kang Hyun thumped his chest and eagerly offered to take that meat and turn it into something truly worth eating. The chef thought back to how he had already rinsed the meat in the creek, trying to wash away the strong smell by clearing out as much of the leftover blood as he could. He knew that kind of soaking should have taken hours, so with how rushed it was, the smell still clung stubbornly to the thick cut of meat. So he popped open a can from his supplies, ready to start the first step in saving this meat. Kang Hyun decided to chase away that heavy odor by soaking the meat in dark beer, using its rich scent to clean and soften it. Under the clear night sky, Kang Hyun calmly tipped the can, letting a stream of dark beer splash into the pot as the first layer of his rescue recipe. The heavy pot thumped down onto the wooden stand, ready to turn that rough meat into something worth eating. The bearded man's eyes bulged when he realized Kang Hyun was dumping beer into the pot, shocked that this rare drink was being used for cooking. The bearded man started to protest, upset that such precious beer was being sacrificed. Kang Hyun did not even look back, telling him to hurry up and build a stand for the pot before his mood got worse. Grumbling under his breath, the man knelt by the fire and stuck branches into the ground to hold the pot, while Kang Hyun casually mentioned that some laurel leaves or fresh herbs would make this even better. Kang Hyun planned the broth in his head, deciding to fill the pot with an even mix of beer and water, so the flavor stayed rich without being too strong. On the side table, Kang Hyun sliced onions and reached for his jars, planning to toss in onions, pepper, a bit of sugar, and salt to round out the broth. With everything in the pot, Kang Hyun settled on a slow simmer, planning to let it bubble gently for about an hour while the quiet night wrapped around the camp. Steam curled up from the pot as the broth rolled softly, the wooden handle resting across the rim while rich smells drifted into the cool, star-lit air. The campfire roared to life, flames leaping high over the stacked logs, hot enough now for whatever Kang Hyun planned to do next. A white wolf pup poked its head over the bushes, nose twitching at the drifting smell from the fire, letting out a curious little bark. Kang Hyun leaned over the pot and slowly lifted the lid, letting a wave of steam wash over his face as he checked the result of the long simmer. Inside, the once tough chunks now shone in a thick red glaze, the meat swollen with broth and beer, looking soft enough to fall apart at touch. Sitting a short distance away, the bearded man and a fluffy white wolf both lifted their noses, eyes half closed as the smell reached them, and the man lazily asked if the meal was finally ready. Kang Hyun told them it still needed one more round of roasting, thinking that in a real kitchen he would slide it into an oven instead of doing it by hand over a fire. To him, this was exactly what made camping special, turning simple fire and air into his own outdoor oven. Thick, sauce-covered hunks of meat turned on long metal skewers above the blazing campfire, the surface sizzling as the outside began to caramelize and charred just right. The huge chunk of meat turned over the blaze, its sauce bubbling and popping, and Kang Hyun knew all that was left was to carve it into easy bites. On the board, the jumping bird knuckle lay half-carved, each thick slice shining with juice and looking soft enough to melt the moment someone bit in. Kang Hyun finally called it done, proudly naming the dish a jumping bird take on a rich, roasted ham hock. The bearded man lifted the plate, breathing in the deep, savory smell, stunned that something this good could come from the stringy jumping bird he knew. In his head, the man admitted that every skilled cook in this land had already given up on making jumping bird meat even edible. And now, he felt a bit bad for letting this clueless outsider try it anyway. Even while telling himself there was no way this could really work, he pinched one shining slice between his fingers and brought it to his mouth. The moment the meat touched his tongue, his body jolted, a rush of flavor crashing through him so hard it felt like sparks were racing under his skin. Staring down at the simple plate in his hands, he tried to put words to the flavor swirling in his mouth and could only wonder what on earth he was even tasting. The bearded man bites down hard and is shocked that the outside shatters under his teeth like a sweet, crisp cookie shell. He realizes the crust is crackling crisp, yet the meat still has that pleasant chew, and he cannot understand how someone pulled off a taste like this. The local closes his eyes and almost swoons, letting the rich, glossy meat and its smell wrap around him like a warm wave. He sees that the inside stays soft and dripping with juice, and cannot believe this is the same jumping bird meat he has choked down his whole life. Even while he enjoys every bite, the man frowns, feeling that something small is missing and that the right partner could turn this meat into a perfect match. Then his eyes light up as it hits him at once. What this rich, salty meat needs is a cold drink, so he yells for someone to bring him beer. The man grabs the bottle and gulps it down in long pulls, letting the cool beer rush over the heavy taste still coating his tongue. He slams the drink down with a grin, face flushed, as he feels the bitter fizzy beer cut through the rich fat and make the jumping bird taste even better. The local lunges in for another massive bite, tearing into the meat like he cannot hold back anymore. He jumps up with a drumstick in one hand and his drink in the other, yelling that he could happily eat this dish for the rest of his life. Kang Hyun only shrugs, calling it just decent and quietly blaming himself for not fully clearing the gamey smell. One of the white wolf pups trots over with a plate polished clean, barking happily that the taste was more than good enough. As the pup bounces around the fire begging for more, Kang Hyun muses that he should have let the meat rest longer and decides to start carrying laurel leaves to fix the smell next time. Watching Kang Hyun nitpick his own work, the local stares in disbelief, thinking that anyone this picky after making such a dish might even outclass the royal chefs in the capital. The campfire roars in the middle of the clearing, throwing sparks into the dark sky as the smell of roasted meat still hangs in the air. The local settles onto the log with a bone in one hand and his drink in the other, smiling like a man who has nothing left to wish for as the fire warms his legs. Kang Hyun lifts his drink with a small smile, saying he is just happy they enjoyed the food, while the local laughs that plain jumping bird will never taste good to him again after this. Kang Hyun waves it off, acting like the meal was nothing special, but the white wolf pup grumbles in protest while the local flatly rejects that kind of talk. The local leans in with a firm look and explains that he has known real chefs before, so he understands just how rare Kang Hyun's skill really is. Under the deep night sky, the two of them sit by the fading fire in easy silence, letting the warmth of the meal and the praise linger between them. Kang Hyun thinks about how often he has been hearing words like this lately, and he smiles, finally accepting the compliment with a simple thanks. The local suddenly jumps to his feet, saying that Kang Hyun has shared something rare and precious with him and that he wants to return the favor with something just as special. Kang Hyun stares up at him, fingers wrapped around his drink, trying to guess what kind of gift could be so important. When the man suddenly offers to pay him back by teaching him how to use a sword, Kang Hyun almost drops his drink, blurting out a confused response as he tries to figure out if he heard that right. The swordsman folds his arms and admits he might be stuck in the countryside now, but he used to be well known in the capital. He insists that his sword skills are valuable enough to match what Kang Hyun gave him with that dinner. He leans in and shouts that countless people have begged him to teach them his swordsmanship. Kang Hyun just stares up at him with a blank face, clutching his drink, not sure how to handle this sudden bragging. The swordsman admits he never liked any of the people who chased after his lessons, so Kang Hyun should not feel burdened by this offer. He adds that if their paths cross again someday, they can pick it up then. Kang Hyun listens as the swordsman says that, when they meet again, Kang Hyun can simply have some beer and a snack ready for him. Kang Hyun sighs inwardly, thinking that this guy's real goal could not be more obvious. Leaning back by the tent, Kang Hyun thinks that the man is probably just too shy to keep getting free meals without giving anything back. The swordsman laughs to himself, thinking that the more he looks at it, the more perfect this deal seems. He is happy to share both his sword knowledge and his beer with Kang Hyun, though he does wonder if Randolph might feel a bit awkward about it. By the fire, the swordsman lifts his drink for toast, while Kang Hyun drinks with him, and the little white wolf curls up nearby. Kang Hyun decides that learning sword drills might even build up his arms enough to handle heavy walks better. Later, he looks up and lets the bright bands of light across the night sky wash over him, thinking how unbelievably pretty this world is. Kang Hyun had no idea that saying yes to that offer would ripple through both his worlds. Morning light poured over the sleepy town, cherry blossoms drifting while the day started like any other. Birds chattered on a branch outside, filling the warm air with lazy morning sounds. Inside, Kang Hyun stood by the window and watched them, letting the slow, quiet morning sink in. The cafe around him was spotless and silent, every table empty as he stared out at the street. Kang Hyun told himself this was fine, that he had already guessed no one would come in today anyway. The little wolf rice cake sat glued to a second-hand TV, killing time with whatever show played on the dusty screen. Kang Hyun bent down beside the stool, eyeing the screen and asking Rice Cake what kind of nonsense they had been binging all day. On the screen, a girl group laughed around a table, filming some Happy Idol show special. The title card flashed bright pink letters, calling the show Idol Star and naming the group Eunice. Kang Hyun stared at the screen, repeating the name Eunice in his head, feeling a memory he had tried to bury start to rise. Rice Cake tilted its head, sensing that something about that name bothered him. The memory shifted to a young staffer standing under the bright sky, his face already tired before the real work even started. The field manager glanced at his phone and asked the person on the other end if they could really handle this job. Down in the yard, the four idols crowded around him, whining that the shoot was way too tiring, that the sun had roasted them, asking when the show would even air, and freaking out about some huge grasshopper that had jumped at them. The manager forced out some praise over the phone, but inside he just sighed, feeling completely worn out by this job. He looked up at the clear sky and admitted to himself that he would rather be back in his quiet office than chasing idols around outside. The four idols bounced with fresh energy again, laughing and teasing each other like the long day had never worn them out. The field manager checked his notes, saw the idols were free after the shoot, and decided this was the perfect chance to drop by Kang Hyun's place. He lifted his phone to his ear and greeted Kang Hyun with a playful check on whether his old friend was even still kicking. While the crew milled around him, the manager asked if he could swing by later for a home-cooked meal, saying he was close enough to drop in once the shoot wrapped. He told Kang Hyun that the place was empty anyway, and joked that there was no reason to eat anywhere else when his own friend was a pro chef, making the idols behind him perk up at the word. Hearing that he had a chef friend and that it would just be them, the four idols huddled together, eyes shining, already dreaming about what kind of food they might get, while he added that he would stay sober to drive. When the call wrapped up with a promise to meet later, the idols pressed their heads together, grinning like kids who had just scored a secret feast. Soon after, the manager opened the car door and told another staffer to look after the idols for a while. And the younger man agreed eagerly as the girls waited on the grass, buzzing about the visit to the mystery chef. The field manager reminded the idols to treat his chef friend kindly, trying to sound strict. The four girls just laughed it off, acting like they were always sweet and easy to handle. As the manager climbed into the car, he paused and glanced back, thinking to himself that their claim was nonsense. The manager told them he would see them the next day and slid into the driver's seat, sounding casual as he shut the door. The idols waved brightly as the car pulled away, and the younger staffer watching them decided it was time for their group to head home as well. Before he could move, the blonde idol hooked an arm around his shoulder and told him to trail the manager's car, insisting they could not let their chance at the mystery chef slip away. The young staffer freaked out and yelled that he could not do that, reminding them that the manager had ordered him to stay focused no matter what. The blonde idol leaned in with a soft smile, lowering her voice as she began to ask if he knew something important. Somewhere else, a mop slid across the floor, while its owner mused that people could be pretty self-centered at times. Kang Hyun grumbled as he mopped, annoyed that his guest had warned him only at the last minute and acting like he might have been too busy to host, even though he clearly was not. In the quiet cafe, he sighed and admitted he had nothing else to do anyway, even if the sudden visit still bothered him. The little white wolf pup figured the guest would be there any minute, and decided Kang Hyun should start getting a meal ready. On the TV, the manager and his junior freaked out, sure that Kang Hyun had caught them trailing his car even in the middle of heavy traffic. Kang Hyun's eyes lit up as he remembered the leftover dailies in the kitchen and began thinking of how to turn them into something special. Before he could plan the full menu, the door slid open and his guest hurried inside, moving so fast that Kang Hyun stiffened in surprise. The manager loomed over his junior, clearly displeased, while the younger staffer stared at the floor, already bracing for a scolding. The manager asked if the kid had really thought he would not notice being followed, and the junior could only mumble an apology, knowing he had pushed things too far. Kang Hyun froze with the mop still in his hand, his mind blank as he tried to figure out why someone was suddenly calling out to him. A group of four women leaned in right in front of him, studying the confused chef like they had just found something interesting. The four of them cheerfully introduced themselves as Yunis, making it clear they were not just random customers. The Yunis members struck playful poses and grinned, filling the quiet cafe with the loud, shiny energy of a full-on idol greeting. Kang Hyun stared blankly, trying to accept that his tiny country restaurant was now full of idols fawning over a fluffy creature. The Yunis members crowded around the white pup, calling it adorable and arguing over who got to pet it first, while the little guy just sprawled on the floor like he owned the place. He gathered the four idols around the table and stood over them, asking if any of them had even thought about what might happen from sneaking out to a tiny place like this. Their manager stepped in, face burning with anger, and ordered them to explain themselves, leaving the girls shrinking back and mumbling weak apologies. The manager ordered the idols to head back at once, and Kang Hyun, hands on his hips, said he mostly understood why the man was upset but still looked for a softer way to handle it. When Kang Hyun glanced over, the junior staffer was kneeling by the couch with tears streaming down, and the chef could not help thinking the kid looked truly pitiful. Kang Hyun quietly suggested to the manager that, since they had already come all this way and it was around dinner, it might be better to send them back with full stomachs instead of just scolding them. The manager hesitated, thinking that the Kang Hyun he remembered would have raised a huge fuss, and wondered when this once fiery star chef had started handling chaos so quietly. Kang Hyun asked what they feel like eating, and the idols shoot their hands up, begging for spicy rice cakes and fried chicken. Their manager slumps beside them, reminding them they are still in the middle of promotions and should probably not be stuffing themselves with greasy food. The manager remembers hearing that Kang Hyun had run off to the countryside to heal and had thought the man had finally lost it. Looking at him now, calmly handling idols and chaos, he has to admit that something in Kang Hyun really has changed. The manager frowns and thinks back, trying to remember if Kang Hyun ever owned a pet before. Spotting the fluffy white pup trotting around, he realizes even this is new and wonders when the chef started living with a dog. Back in the kitchen, Kang Hyun stands over the counter, running his hand over the bowls and bottles he has set out. The noise from the living room fades as he starts planning the meal in his head. Kang Hyun stares ahead, thinking about the girls on the couch and their tired faces. He wonders what kind of food would cheer them up without weighing them down. He curls his fingers slightly, feeling a quiet spark of drive he has not felt in a long time. Since they came all the way out here, he wants to make something truly good for them. Kang Hyun lets out a small hum, and the knives, bottles, and bowls lined up on the counter. He begins sorting through ideas, limiting himself to what is already in the kitchen. He swings the fridge doors wide and studies the rows of neatly packed containers and sauces. With this much ready to go, he knows he can put together something special that still fits what they need. Kang Hyun lifts the container and grins, happy that what he needs is right there. He flips the lid open and a pile of shiny cherry tomatoes fills the box. Wanting to keep things light, he calmly starts having the tomatoes one by one. He lays a thick cut of meat onto the hot pan, planning a dish the girls will actually be excited to eat. To make it both healthy and tasty, he grates a rich yellow cheese over the board, already picturing the final balance. Soon a soft mountain of grated cheese is piled up, waiting to crown the meal. He plates crisp greens, juicy steak slices, and the bright tomatoes, then finishes it with a glossy stream of dressing over the top. The tomato pasta and steak salad hit the table, still steaming, colors so bright they almost glow. One girl lifts a forkful to her lips, and the others follow, ready to judge his cooking. Soon all of them are chewing slowly with their eyes closed, really taking in the flavor. The blonde office worker's eye flies open as the taste finally sinks in. Her face brightens with pure joy as she gushes that the tomato pasta is insanely good. Chopsticks pull up a shining bundle of noodles, the sauce clinging so well it almost dares them not to take another bite. The girl in the blue sweater lifts a forkful of steak and greens, amazed that the meat is so tender and the vegetables so fresh. And she starts asking where on earth he found a dressing that good. Kang Hyun watches them with a small smile and tells his helper he kept everything light on purpose, wanting the girls to just relax and eat without anyone bothering them. Tears roll down the girl's cheeks as she eats, hit by the thought that she has gone her whole life without food this good and feeling almost mad about it. Both office girls shake in their seats, clutching their heads and forks, crying that they have wasted their lives and that the food is so good it actually makes them angry. Watching the girls lose it over the meal, the two cooks trade looks, one joking that you never know when you will see people eat like this again, and teasing that Kang Hyun must have been starving them, while the other quickly denies it. Kang Hyun glances back at the blissed-out customer and says he will eat later, mentioning that he made himself a simple vongol pasta since he still has a long drive back to Seoul. The co-worker's eyes widen as it sinks in that Kang Hyun made a special dish just because he has to drive, and he starts wondering if Kang Hyun is suddenly being way too considerate of him. That thought spirals fast, and the co-worker narrows his eyes, starting to fear there is a darker reason behind this sudden kindness. The co-worker grabs Kang Hyun's shoulder and dead serious asks if he is about to die, and Kang Hyun just stares at him, demanding to know if he really looks that sick. Later, outside the warmly lit entrance, the girls gather with the co-worker while one of them calls out to Kang Hyun that the food was really delicious, leaving him standing in the doorway as their praise echoes down the street. Kang Hyun smiles and tells them he will cook something even better for them the next time they visit. The blonde office worker beams and says they will definitely come back to eat his food again, happily calling him Chef Kang Hyun. Kang Hyun stiffens for a second, answering back in a flustered mumble, still not used to people calling out to him like that. From the car window, the girls wave wildly and yell that both he and his cooking look even better in real life, before saying goodbye and heading off into the night. Kang Hyun quietly wonders when they even realized who he was, and his coworker points out that those girls binge his cooking videos whenever they get hungry, so of course they would recognize him right away. With that said, the coworker says he should get going too and reaches for the car door handle. Standing in the doorway, Kang Hyun nods and asks him to give a heads up before dropping by next time. Resting his arm on the window, the coworker gives him a knowing look and asks how the healing is going these days. Kang Hyun goes still for a moment, turning the question over in his head instead of answering right away. Then he lets out a small smile and says that he is doing better, sounding more honest than he has in a long time. The little white wolf is curled up on a chair fast asleep, like it fully trusts this quiet house. Later, Kang Hyun rides his bike down a country road, the white pup sitting in the front basket as pedals drift around them. As he pedals along, he thinks about the nearby markets, remembering that the small store with good spring greens is the closest while the others are all the way in the bigger town. The bike wheel hums over the road, eating up the distance without him really noticing. Kang Hyun pulls up in front of Brothers Supermarket, glancing at the sign and hoping they stocked up on those fresh spring greens again today. Inside, Kang Hyun slips through the door and calls out a polite greeting, trying to get the worker's attention as he looks over the shelves. Kang Hyun blinks at the shaky greeting, a bit taken aback by how nervous the worker sounds. The young clerk, standing by a crate of fruit, stammers that her grandma was the one who greeted him before and asks if he is looking for something special. Kang Hyun quickly waves his hand, telling her not to worry and that he will look around by himself. His eyes move over the tubs of roots and greens, and he realizes the dailies he came for are nowhere to be seen, even though Grandma Park always asks for that pasta. Kang Hyun crouches down and points at the tubs, asking if these are all the spring greens they have. And when the clerk quietly admits that is everything, he sighs and figures he will have to ride all the way into town. On his way out, Kang Hyun holds the door and tells the clerk he will visit again, while the white pup waits in the bike basket, ears perked. As he steps away from the store, Kang Hyun stiffens, a drop of sweat sliding down as some sudden noise pulls his gaze to the side. Out on the street, two kids are locked in a messy hair-pulling fight, each yanking harder and shouting for the other to let go while their friends stare in panic. The black-haired boy yanks hard on the other kid's hair, tears running down his face as he spits out that he is done playing with them. The blonde boy clutches his head, crying and snarling that he does not want to play with them either, calling the other kid a show-off. Locked together in the middle of the street, the blonde kid shouts that the other boy looks nothing like the rest of them and yells at him to go back to his own country, while the nearby kids freeze in shock. The black-haired boy's grip loosens as his eyes go wide, the insult about where he comes from hitting harder than any pull or shove. Kang Hyun moves between them and catches both their wrists, forcing their hands apart and cutting off the hair pulling before it can start again. With a steady look, Kang Hyun tells them that once something harsh is said out loud, it cannot be taken back. The blonde boy stares up at him, suddenly unsure, as Kang Hyun calmly asks if he is really ready to live with what he just said. A woman steps out from the doorway, her head turning toward the raised voices outside as she realizes something is going on with the kids. Myung's mother freezes for a second, her eyes wide as she spots her daughter caught up in the mess. Myung twists toward the voice and cries out for her mom, while Kang Hyun still stands between the boys, keeping their hands apart. Myung rushes into her mother's arms and clings tight, while the woman bends over her, worried and asking if she is hurt. The blonde boy hangs his head as his parent clamps a hand around his wrist, clearly ready to drag him away after a sharp scolding. With the parents there, Kang Hyun finally lets the child's hand slip from his grasp and steps out of the way. One parent leads the blonde boy away, while Kang Hyun watches from the side and Myung stays pressed against her mother's chest, the tension slowly fading from the street. Later, Myung's mother bows low, clearly both thankful and sorry for the trouble her daughter caused. She stays bent at the waist, repeating her thanks, but Kang Hyun waves his hands with an awkward smile, insisting he just happened to be there. Kang Hyun glances over a little nervous and softly calls Myung's name. Myung is curled up on the floor bed, already fast asleep under the blanket. Myung's mother looks down with a tight face, murmuring that all of this happened because of her. Kang Hyun waves his hands in a panic, insisting it was only a small fight between kids and that she did nothing wrong. The woman straightens and calmly tells Kang Hyun her name is Yoongun, adding that she came here from Vietnam. Yoongun lowers her eyes and says she thinks there is more going on with Myung than just that one fight. Myung lies stiff under the blanket with her eyes open, tears sliding down as she listens, fully awake and hurting. Kang Hyun tenses up, a bead of sweat running down his cheek as he struggles to find the right words. Inside, he wishes he could tell her she was wrong to blame herself. He remembers the boy yanking Myung around in the yard, yelling that she looked different and should just go back to where she came from. After seeing that ugly scene, Kang Hyun had been frozen, unable to speak up for her. Staring at the ground, the chef knows this kind of hurt is not something he can gloss over with a few light words. Yoongun steadies herself and changes the subject, saying she already knows him as the man who runs a restaurant on the far side of the village. Kang Hyun's eyes widen. He clearly did not expect her to know anything about his place. Myung's mother admits she only knows how to cook Vietnamese food, but her daughter dreams of a birthday party this year where classmates will come over, and that thought clearly weighs on her. Kang Hyun sits alone in the quiet shop, fingers wrapped around a warm mug as his thoughts keep circling back to Myung and her mother. He stares down at the mug and the little flower beside it, shoulders drooping as he wonders how he can protect Myung from that kind of hurt. Kang Hyun lets out a long sigh, the sound soft but full of frustration at how little he can actually do. He leans on his hand and quietly repeats Yoongun's wish in his mind, deciding he really does not want Myung to be teased ever again. A white wolf pup hops up against his leg, and Kang Hyun gives a weak smile, joking that the little one is trying to cheer him up. The pup proudly holds up a can of pricey caviar, and Kang Hyun blinks in shock, asking where on earth it managed to dig that up. He mutters that caviar like this is not even tasty on its own, then shrugs and says it is useless to him anyway, handing it over while teasing the pup for always running to him whenever food is involved. He falls quiet again, eyes lifting as a small spark of an idea begins to push through his gloom. Kang Hyun snaps out of his gloom and reminds himself that this is exactly why people have neighbors, deciding he should ask the village for help instead of carrying everything alone. With that thought, Kang Hyun grabs a box of drinks and heads out, a small bead of sweat on his face showing he is nervous but set on doing this. He walks up to a familiar green gate, thinking that he needs someone he can trust who knows all the villagers well, then presses the doorbell. When the gate swings open, Kang Hyun gives a shy smile with the box in hand, thinking he really did come to the right person for this. The woman of the house, Soojin, steps out in a yellow sweater, blinking in surprise when she sees Kang Hyun at her gate. After hearing his reason for visiting, Soojin brightens and happily tells him to come in, leading him toward the porch where a couple of village men are already sitting and chatting. The village chief throws his head back and yells in mock outrage, asking why the other chief is here before admitting he only came over to share a drink. Sitting with Soojin and the village men on the porch, Kang Hyun finishes explaining about Myung and says he wants to teach her a special dish for the birthday party, hoping they can help him figure out the best one. Soojin thinks back and says she knows the supermarket lady, adding that she has often seen Myung spending time after school with a boy named Sanghu. Kang Hyun repeats that the two kids go to the same school and admits he did not expect them to be close friends. The village chief chuckles and points out that every child in the area goes to that same school, since it is the only one around. Kang Hyun slowly understands that the school only has a single mixed class, with kids from different grades all learning together in one room. Soojin lowers her gaze, saying it hurts to think about everything Myung has gone through and that she can fully understand the worry weighing on Yoongun. Kang Hyun stares out at the bright sky, letting the weight of their words about Myung and her father settle in his chest. Fingers tightly laced, Kang Hyun thinks that every parent shares the same hope, that their child can grow up without heavy worries on their shoulders. One of the chiefs leans over and mentions that Myung's mother is from Vietnam, suggesting that they ask her to make a dish from her home country. Kang Hyun hesitates and says that if Myung's mom learns Korean food just to blend in, it might only make Myung feel even more pressured to change who she is. The chief points out that kids Myung's age barely understand anything about this stuff, so right now she just sees herself and the other kids as different and can't accept that gap. He says that is exactly why the grown-ups have to step in and guide her. With a soft smile, the village chief adds that they need to show Myung that being different is not wrong or shameful at all. He turns to Kang Hyun and gently tells him that he also needs to do his part in helping the girl. The chief reminds him that one good bite of food can teach more than 100 careful speeches. Kang Hyun falls silent, eyes distant, already turning the chief's words into a plan he can carry out in the kitchen. Inside the small kitchen, Myung's mother stands at the counter, calmly getting the pots and tools ready as she starts on the meal that will carry all of their hopes. Myung's mother chops in silence, wondering if changing her cooking style is really right when Korean and Vietnamese food feel so far apart. She bites her nail, scared that the kids might turn up their noses and leave the food untouched. Kang Hyun explains that they already have enough for the rice noodles and tells her to pull out the onion pieces after the broth is done, since most kids hate finding them in their bowls. He looks over his shoulder with a relaxed smile, and his simple answer makes her shoulders loosen a bit as she follows his lead. Kang Hyun then brings up the Vietnamese spring rolls she made before, treating them as the key to planning the rest of the meal. A plate of bright, neatly cut vegetables and herbs shows just how much care she already put into those spring rolls. He admits the spring rolls are tasty and familiar, but imagines a small child fumbling with the wrapper and dropping fillings everywhere, and warns that many kids will skip food that feels that hard to eat. He suggests they switch to cha geo instead, turning the same flavors into crisp little rolls that kids can just pick up and enjoy. The cha geo come out perfectly golden, lined up on the plate and shining with oil, already looking like something any kid would want to grab. Kang Hyun points out that kids will love how crisp these rolls are, and suggests she pitch them as Vietnamese dumplings, something fun and familiar instead of strange. The young mother still feels nervous, but a small part of her relaxes as she tells herself that everything will work out as long as Kang Hyun stays by her side in the kitchen. The faucet swings into place, water about to rush out as they dive into the next round of prep. Cold water pours over a pile of bright herbs, washing away any grit so only clean, fresh greens go into the kids' food. A bowl of bean sprouts slides into the pot, the pale strands piling up as the base for light, crunchy side. On a metal tray, small patties of bright red, seasoned meat wait in neat rows, sized just right for little hands. Kang Hyun cups a patty between his palms, pressing it into shape with the steady, practiced motions of someone who wants every bite to feel made just for them. The young mother carries the big platter over, and Kang Hyun leans in, curious about what their hard work has turned into. On the plate, bright herbs, noodles, and grilled meat circles surround a bowl of rich sauce, the classic Vietnamese bun cha. Kang Hyun thinks about how bun cha might not be as well known as pho, but still counts as one of Vietnam's key dishes. He gathers noodles and a meat patty, then sinks them into the nuoc cham, since bun cha is all about dipping meat, veggies, and noodles into that sauce before each bite. He lifts the dripping bundle of noodles and meat, ready to taste how everything came together. As the scent hits him, he notes the sweet, sour, refreshing smell and feels sure this mix of flavors will sit well with the kids. Kang Hyun decides this will work great as their main dish, then asks her to grab him a glass of water so he can keep going. The young mother answers right away, saying she will bring it over in a moment. Kang Hyun starts to turn, bowl in hand, as something behind him tugs at his attention. A tiny white beast pops onto his shoulder, eyes sparkling at the bowl as it eagerly asks if that treat is rice cake. The little beast leans right over the rim, nose almost in the bowl, fully locked onto the food. While the tiny beast happily gulps from the bowl, Kang Hyun watches it and asks for its honest take on the taste. The small beast bursts into wild kicks and wiggles against his cheek, so thrilled by the taste that it can't hold still. One of the adults points out that the little foodie's tail has never wagged this hard today, and says Yoongun must be a truly skilled chef to pull that kind of response. The young mother comes back with his drink, then stops mid-sentence, stunned by whatever mess the tiny beast just caused. Kang Hyun laughs off the fuss, then tells the young mother to skip the pepper in the sauce for the children and to go lighter on the cilantro as well. Kang Hyun calmly points out that the dish uses only pork, and suggests mixing in some beef in a 2-to-1 ratio so the texture stays juicy instead of drying out. The young mother looks a bit surprised by how specific his advice is, but she nods and agrees to try it his way. After tasting the result, Kang Hyun gives a simple verdict that the dish turned out truly delicious. Kang Hyun smiles and explains that with this taste and texture, the kids are sure to enjoy the dish a lot. Hearing that, the young mother's face lights up with relief, and she thanks him from the bottom of her heart. A little later, Kang Hyun walks out through the gate with the tiny white beast cradled in his arms and lets out a long breath, the busy visit finally behind him. Looking back at the house, Kang Hyun smiles and thinks how lucky it is that the young mother already cooks well and picked up his advice so easily. As Kang Hyun strolls away, he tells them again that everything will be fine, while the little girl in blue hurries after him, calling out to him as their trusted chef. As Kang Hyun starts to leave with the little beast in his arms, the girl in blue calls out to him, and he finally learns that her name is Myung. Myung shyly hands him a crumpled, hand-drawn card, asking him to take it as her official invitation to her birthday party. Kang Hyun bends down, impressed that she made the invite herself, while Myung proudly explains that no one can get into the party without that card, telling him not to lose it. Then Myung's smile fades as she admits she does not think many kids will show up, which makes Kang Hyun gently ask why she believes that. The girl explains that she recently fought with a boy named Chelman, and since he has lots of friends, she is sure they will all avoid her party, while Kang Hyun quietly files that boy's name away in his mind. Looking down with a tight mouth and worried eyes, Myung says she is pretty sure nobody will come at all. Kang Hyun sits there in silence, holding the fluffy beast as he mulls over Myung's lonely words and starts thinking about how he can help. Time jumps forward to Myung's birthday, and her home is decked out with banners, balloons, and neatly wrapped gifts, all waiting to see who will actually show up. Myung shuffles across her room, clutching her stomach as she worries if the chef she adores will really show up for her birthday. She tells herself that Sang-hoo will probably come, trying to hang on to that tiny bit of hope. Myung squeezes her hands together, running through more names in her head and wondering if any of them will really keep their promise. Standing under the bright banner and balloons, Mi-young stares at the closed doors and wonders if she is going to spend this birthday all alone. An adult calls her name and gently asks what she thinks, snapping her out of her spiral. Mi-young jerks her head up, caught off guard that someone was talking to her. Her eyes light up and her mouth falls open as all that worry melts into pure awe at what she is seeing. In front of her stands a woman in a simple white dress, smiling so softly that the whole room suddenly feels warm and safe. The woman gently shows Mi-young a bright outfit from her own country, asking if she wants to try it. Mi-young's eyes sparkle and she bounces on her feet, thrilled to wear it. A moment later, Mi-young twirls in the red top and white pants, laughing as petals swirl around her. She reaches back with a wide grin, already feeling like this birthday might turn out okay. Mi-young slows down and turns her head, letting out a small gasp as something new pulls her out of her happy spin. The woman tells Mi-young that it sounds like her friends are here, and gently urges her to go open the door for them. Mi-young looks up with bright eyes and quickly agrees, her nerves pushed aside by a rush of hope. Mi-young rushes to unlock the door, thinking how glad she is that at least one person came. Her mind races through names, hoping it is Sang-hoo or maybe Ah-hyung waiting outside. She peeks around the door with a huge smile, cheerfully asking who has come to her party. Mi-young's eyes go wide and her mouth parts in surprise, clearly not seeing the face she was expecting on the other side of the door. Outside the door, the boy grips his shorts so hard his knuckles pale, a tiny bead of sweat giving away how scared he is to be here. Mi-young freezes in the doorway, one hand pressed to her chest as a cold sweat runs down her cheek, trying to understand why this boy is standing at her birthday party instead of the friends she was waiting for. The boy stands there with his shoulders hunched and eyes turned away, fists balled at his sides as if he is forcing himself not to run, clearly just as unsure about this meeting as Mi-young is. Mi-young grips the door and stares at him, asking in a flat voice why he even came here. The birthday girl looks aside and says she never asked him to come, telling him to turn around and go back. As Mi-young twists the knob to shut him out, the boy panics and shouts that he is sorry. Mi-young steps out into the doorway and, voice shaking, explains that she was just so mad earlier that she ended up saying really hurtful things. The boy curls his fingers into his shorts and, staring at the ground, says he is sorry too. Tears stream down his face as he rubs his eyes and cries out that he is really, truly sorry. Mi-young's eyes widen as she takes in his words, hearing that he came all this way just to apologize to her. After a heavy pause, Mi-young softens but still tells him that even so, he cannot come in. Mi-young hesitates, then admits there is one simple reason she tried to turn him away. She waves her own party invite in his face and yells that he is not allowed in because he never even got one. The boy freezes as if struck by lightning, his eyes wide and fresh tears spilling as the meaning of her words sinks in. Facing Mi-young, the boy hunches over and, between shaky breaths, admits he showed up without any invitation at all. Mi-young suddenly reaches out with a card, offering him his own invitation while he stares at her in shock. As Mi-young tells him she will overlook it this time, the boy clutches the invite, his tears turning into a shaky, grateful smile. The boy beams and thanks her over and over, while Mi-young stands with a shy, pleased look, the awkward wait between them finally gone. A few classmates peek around the doorway, asking if the talk is finally over so they can all head inside and start the birthday party for real. Mi-young's friends jump in, scolding Chalman for being so harsh and making it clear his behavior was not okay. A whole crowd of classmates bursts in, waving their invitations and holding up wrapped gifts, eager to start Mi-young's birthday for real. Mi-young beams at them all, thanking them for coming and soaking in the warm birthday wishes. On the table, Kang Hyeon's dishes fill every space, from golden rolls to bright noodles and rich sauces, turning the birthday into a full-on feast. The kids lean over the table, amazed by the strange dishes and pointing at the noodles, saying they have never seen food like this, but it looks really fun to try. Kang Hyeon hurries in with more plates, half laughing to himself that it feels like the whole school has crowded into the house, and he sets down a bowl of spicy bibimbap among the other dishes. One of the children pipes up, asking for help on how they are supposed to eat these noodles and sides together. Mi-young's mom leans down with a smile, telling the girls the dish is called bun cha and showing them that they should dip the pieces into the sauce before taking a bite. One of the kids twirls the noodles with a meatball, dunks it deep into the dark sauce and lifts up a dripping, perfect bite. The girls lean over their bowls and slurp up the noodles, cheeks puffed out as they cram in as much as they can. Her eyes shine and she freezes mid-bite, the taste hitting her harder than she expected. In her head, the noodles and meat seem to burst into the air, sauce and steam swirling as if the whole bite just turned into fireworks. The girls bounce on their feet, fists balled up, yelling that they have never eaten anything like this in their lives. Voices rise around the table as the kids gush that the sauce is both sour and sweet, but somehow perfect, while another group marvels that the banzio is crazy good and delightfully chewy. Another kid stares at the dumpling on her fork like it is the love of her life, boldly declaring she wants to marry it, while a friend laughs that her dream partner has already changed again. As the eating calms down a bit, one boy leans toward Mi-young, eyeing her outfit with interest and asking where that special dress came from since he has never seen anything like it. The birthday girl throws her arms wide and proudly tells her friends that all this food comes from her mother's home country, making one of the kids blink and repeat the part about her mom in surprise. Her mother smiles with a plate in hand as the kids chat excitedly that she is from Vietnam, amazed that both she and all these dishes came from so far away and guessing she once flew here on a plane. One boy stares at the bright red dress, blurting out that it is so pretty he wants to marry it when he grows up, only for a friend to dryly remind him he should probably marry an actual person instead. The birthday girl races over and tugs at her mother, begging her to show the others her dress too so they can brag about matching, while the mom glances back at the kitchen, worried she still has food to finish. Kang Hyun waves off her worry with a calm smile, saying the food is nearly finished anyway, and that he can handle what is left so she can go join her daughter. Freed from the stove, the mother lets herself be pulled along as her daughter clings to her arm and urges her to hurry over to the party. The mother's face softens into a gentle smile, clearly warmed by how proud her little girl is of them matching. From his seat at the table, Kang Hyun relaxes beside the tiny white wolf as the kids squeal about how pretty the matching dresses are, the easy chatter filling the room with a cozy buzz. The mother and her daughter stand side by side, proudly showing off their matching clothes while the other kids stare in open awe. Watching them, Kang Hyun notes to himself how truly happy they look. Far away in the other world, a wide wolf tribe village sits behind wooden walls, smoke curling from round tents as life goes on. Inside one of the tents, the masked chieftain leans forward, drawing out his words as he waits to hear the report. The chieftain sits cross-legged on his platform, half amused and half annoyed as he points out that his precious daughter has managed to run away yet again. The white-furred warrior crouches low and reports that even with extra guards, the girl slipped out through a gap they missed. The chieftain asks if his daughter has run off to meet that human once more, and the white-furred warrior bows his head and confirms it. The chieftain's eyes narrow behind the skull mask, as he wonders what kind of human could catch the interest of a sacred wolf and charm his own daughter at the same time. The white-furred warrior stiffens, eyes wide, as the order to bring the human into their village finally sinks in. The chieftain lounges on his platform and reminds the warrior that humans are not banned here, adding that no one would dare cause trouble for someone he calls his guest. His fingers curl around the bone mask as he points out that his own daughter owes the human a debt. The wolf chieftain throws her head back with a sharp laugh, clearly entertained by the idea of this strange human who helped her child. She decides that, as the girl's mother, the least she can do is meet this human properly. Far from the wolf village, a clear stream winds through a glowing blue forest where a lone horned deer drinks in peace. The deer-like spirit lifts its head, ears twitching, puzzled by a sudden noise cutting through the quiet woods. Back at his grandfather's place, Kang Hyun presses his hands over his ears as Rice Cake barks nonstop, grumbling for the loud dog to quiet down. Rice Cake stiffens and bares his teeth, completely losing it over whatever Kang Hyun just said in front of him. Kang Hyun eyes the cooler full of shrimp, and points out how silly it is that Rice Cake can wrestle huge birds, yet acts like these tiny dead things are a threat. The chef figures Rice Cake is wary simply because this inland area has no salty seas or lakes, so creatures like shrimp are totally new to him. Inside the cooler, rows of plump gray shrimp lie packed in ice, looking clean, fresh, and full of promise for whatever dish he has in mind. Kang Hyun sighs to himself, thinking it is a real waste because shrimp are honestly one of the tastiest things he could cook. Leaning forward with a crooked smile, Kang Hyun admits that for someone like Rice Cake, who has never seen sea creatures, these bug-eyed shells could easily look a bit nasty. Kang Hyun falls quiet, eyes narrowing as he remembers the kind of things this picky dog normally drags back from the wild. In his mind, Kang Hyun lines up the twisted beasts and brutal monster heads Rice Cake once begged him to cook and decides those looked way worse than a tray of shrimp, leaving him wondering what kind of taste this little glutton actually has. Kang Hyun drops the argument in his head and decides to just cook, planning to show Rice Cake how amazing shrimp can really taste. Cold water splashes as more plump shrimp drop into the bowl, the pile of shiny shells promising a rich, savory meal. The chef works neatly, snipping off the sharp parts and pulling out the dark line inside, treating each shrimp with the same care he once used in a fancy kitchen. He tips a heavy stream of coarse salt into the pan, building a thick, crunchy bed that will heat up and season the shrimp from below. Kang Hyun moves on to the next step, planning to line the shrimp up so each one cooks evenly on the hot salt. Soon the pan is filled with shrimp lined up like soldiers, each one resting on the salt bed, ready to turn sweet and juicy over the heat. Kang Hyun notes that all that is left is to cover the pan and let the heat do the work, almost amused at how such a simple trick can make shrimp taste so rich. Kang Hyun smiles as he sets the lid in place, already sure that once the shrimp finish steaming in salt, even a picky white wolf will not be able to resist. The little white wolf pup stared hard at the steaming pan, while Kang Hyun thought that he would have liked to show this recipe to Randolph. But since there was still plenty of shrimp left, he could always make it again and just had to wait for this batch to finish. Time slows around the camp as Kang Hyun sits in his chair, the white pup and the orange beast kid hanging close by, all three of them just listening to the soft sound of shrimp cooking in the covered pan. As the smell grows stronger, Kang Hyun glances over at the orange-haired beast kid and blinks in confusion, only now noticing how close this extra guest has crept toward the stove. Kang Hyun leans forward and asks himself when this beast kid even joined their little group. But when he sees the white pup locked onto the pan like nothing else in the world matters, he just lets the question go. Instead, Kang Hyun simply tells the beast kid that if they are hungry, they are welcome to eat with them too. When he lifts the lid, a cloud of fragrant steam rushes out, showing neat rows of bright orange shrimp resting on the hot salt, each one glistening and ready to eat. With practiced hands, Kang Hyun picks up a shrimp and gently peels back the shell, revealing the thick, juicy meat he plans to share out. Soon 2 plates with peeled shrimp sit on the grass, and the white pup and the beast kid crawl right up to them as Kang Hyun tells them to go ahead and try the first bites. The little white wolf pup leans in first, sinking its teeth into the juicy shrimp it has been staring at this whole time. Right after the pup, the orange-haired beast kid chomps down on a piece of shrimp, not wanting to miss out. The moment the shrimp touches their tongues, it feels like a bright, salty wave crashes over their senses. In their minds, the white pup and the beast kid cling to a huge shrimp racing through clear blue water, carried away by the taste. The little wolf squeezes the giant shrimp tight, as if it never wants to let go of this rich, sea-like taste. The shrimp itself feels firm yet tender in their mouths, packed with deep, briny flavor that spreads with every chew. Back at the camp, Kang Hyun watches them with a bright smile, holding up another piece of shrimp as he asks what they think of his cooking. Both the pup and the beast kid are stunned, feeling like they are tasting the very sea itself in each bite. The pup and the beast kid bend over their plates, tearing into the shrimp like it is the best thing in the world, eyes shining with pure delight. Kang Hyun leans back in his chair with a small laugh, saying how good it feels to watch them enjoy his cooking this much. Mona bounces over her nearly empty plate, begging for more shrimp, and Kang Hyun gives in with a smile, starting to peel another piece as he calls her by name. Tall silver-haired beast warrior steps up behind them, lips set in a firm line as he speaks in a low, steady voice. Mona freezes, eyes bulging and sweat popping out as the weight of that familiar voice hits her. The beast warrior's massive leg lands beside the camp, and Mona ducks behind Kang Hyun while the white pup stiffens, leaving Kang Hyun to look up at their towering visitor with a shrimp still in his hand. The beast warrior calmly points out that Mona has slipped away from the village yet again. The beast warrior stands tall in front of them, muscles and fur bristling, making it clear that this is not just some random passerby but someone Mona cannot easily ignore. Kang Hyun recognizes the towering warrior as the same one who hauled Mona home last time and quickly holds out another shrimp, saying she only ran off because she is starving. The chef asks the beast warrior to let Mona eat before dragging her back, adding that the food is safe, while the warrior closes his eyes and listens without giving anything away. The beast warrior finally answers, saying he did not come for the kid at all but came here today because of Kang Hyun. Kang Hyun stares up at the huge beast warrior, sweat beading on his neck as he points at himself in disbelief, wondering why someone like that would seek him out. His mind races, and he nervously wonders what on earth this beast warrior expects from a simple camper and cook. The beast warrior steps closer across the grass and calls out to the human chef again, his tone leaving no room to slip away. He tells Kang Hyun to come along, making it clear this is not really a request. The beast warrior stares down with a hard, unreadable face, and the air around the camp turns heavy as Kang Hyun realizes he has little choice but to follow. Kang Hyun just freezes with the shrimp still in his hand, sweat running down his face as he stares up at the beast warrior, unable to believe he is really the one being dragged into this. The beast warrior stared down at Kang Hyun, calm but firm, as if he had already decided what would happen next. From his camp chair in the middle of the bright field, Kang Hyun looked up at the towering warrior and nervously wondered where exactly he was supposed to follow him to. The beast warrior explained that the village chief herself had asked for Kang Hyun to come to their village, which caught the chef completely off guard. When the warrior added that the chief was actually Mona's mother, the kid yanked on Kang Hyun's sleeve in outrage while he stared back in stunned disbelief. Facing that steady, unreadable stare, Kang Hyun could not shake the fear that the adults in the village were planning to grill him about what he had been feeding Mona, and that following this warrior without thinking might be a bad idea. So the chef forced a weak smile, waved the shrimp in his hand, and awkwardly claimed he was too busy today to visit any village. Before he could relax, something hard pressed against his cheek, and Kang Hyun blinked in surprise as the warrior pushed a small horn into his hands instead of arguing. The beast warrior said the horn was something only their fighters used, and told Kang Hyun to blow it when he had time, turning what felt like an order into an invitation he could answer later. Kang Hyun turned the warrior's horn over in his hand, feeling how serious it was. He wondered if this was really just a friendly invite or if the chief had some other reason for wanting to meet a random human cook like him. As he stared at the horn, it hit him that the chief just wanted to judge the human who had tempted her daughter out of the village. In his head, this turned from a simple visit into a scary meeting with an upset parent. Kang Hyun muttered that he had never tried to lure Mona out on purpose, clutching the horn like it might bite him. The beast warrior just stated that this was all he had to say and started to walk off, leaving no room to argue. The beast warrior turned his back, ready to head out, even as Kang Hyun called after him in a small, nervous voice. Far away, the Beastman village went on with its quiet day, kids running between round tents while the sun poured down on the green grass. Back in one of the tents, the beast warrior lifted a black bag, clearly planning to bring something with him for the human cook. Inside the bag was a heap of bright red shrimp, the same kind Kang Hyun had grilled for them earlier. When the warrior came back, Kang Hyun held out the bag with an awkward smile, saying he could not let someone who came all this way go back with nothing. He admitted the shrimp looked a bit rough but promised they tasted great. Inside his tent, the beast warrior sat down with a bag of shrimp, the warm light making the place feel calm as he finally tried the human's food. The warrior's back straightened at once, his ears twitching as the flavor hit him harder than he expected. He moved his hand for another bite, quietly admitting to himself that this human's cooking was actually pretty good. His tail brushed across the floor as he relaxed, already reaching back into the bag for more shrimp. Kang Hyun let out a weak sigh, torn between going to the village or staying put, telling himself that since the white wolf had not made a fuss, the chief was probably not a bad person. He slouched in his chair, thinking that even if he was curious, he could not just walk into a Beastman village without a plan and wishing he had someone he could ask, while the pup and Mona snapped at each other over the empty plate at his feet. Just then Randolph pushed past a tree with a loud greeting, calling out to Kang Hyun like he had expected to find him here. Kang Hyun almost jumped out of his chair as Mona clung to his chest and the pup clambered over his head. Then he spotted Randolph and blurted out his name, suddenly feeling like he might finally have someone to talk to about this village invite. With Mona yanking at his face and the pup climbing over his head, Kang Hyun hurriedly tells Randolph that he actually needs his help, and Randolph agrees that he clearly looks like he could use a hand. The noise at the camp faded into the soft sound of birds crossing the bright sky above the green hills. Randolph stared at him, saying that the whole story about a beastman village inviting a human sounded almost too unreal. From where he sat in the grass, Kang Hyun asked if something like this was really that rare. Sitting across from him, Randolph explained that humans and beastmen had cut off contact long ago, and that this was the first time he had ever heard of a human getting an invitation from them. Looking down at the sleeping Mona, Randolph thought about how strange it was that a tribe known for raising children as a group had simply left the kid in this human's care. Kang Hyun tilted his head at Randolph, not really understanding that, to everyone else, what was happening to him was something incredible. Randolph told him he could go to the village without worry because they would not try to hurt him. And Kang Hyun finally let out the breath he had been holding, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. Kang Hyun leaned toward the pup and the dozing Mona, choosing to forget about the village for now and think about food instead, while Randolph watched with a mix of worry and curiosity. With a playful grin, Kang Hyun raised a handful of huge shrimp, asking if they were ready for something really delicious. Soon the pan was hot, and his chopsticks moved quickly through the bubbling butter, toasting little bits until the smell turned rich and nutty. He showered the pan with salt and freshly ground pepper, letting the simple seasoning wake up the buttery aroma even more. Before long, the pan was packed with bright orange shrimp, each one coated in glossy butter and sending up waves of savory steam. He flipped the shrimp through a splash of golden sauce, coating every curve so they shone like little suns. The scent reached them, and Randolph stiffened with wide eyes while the pup and Mona peeked around him, faces shining with pure hunger and excitement. Kang Hyun set down a plate piled high with garlic butter grilled shrimp, the shells gleaming beside a bright wedge of lemon, turning their quiet camp into a five-star table. Kang Hyun picked up the hot shrimp with his gloved fingers and neatly slipped the shell off, showing them exactly how to peel it before taking a bite. Randolph held up the curved shrimp, frowning at its odd shape while wondering what it might taste like and how this human had gathered such rare ingredients. Curiosity won out, and Randolph raised the shrimp to his mouth, ready to test this mysterious young man's cooking for himself. The moment the shrimp touched his tongue, Randolph's body relaxed and his face softened, stunned that this was the first time he had ever tasted something with such deep, perfect flavor. In his mind, the buttery shrimp and sharp lemon seemed to float in a bright, sparkling space, like this simple camp dish had stepped into its own little world. His thoughts turned playful, picturing the shrimp dancing around as he noted how it was salty and rich with oil, yet somehow still incredibly tasty. Back at the plate, Randolph gripped another shrimp with shaking hands, shocked by how badly he wanted that bouncy, addictive texture again. While Randolph battled his own craving, Kang Hyun hurried over to drag the white wolf pup away from Mona's plate, scolding them both as they fought over the shrimp like they could each finish a whole bowl by themselves. Randolph bit straight into the shrimp, already annoyed at how much work peeling each one would be. Kang Hyun stared as the pup and Mona happily munched on whole shrimp, realizing they had gotten tired of waiting for him to peel them. Watching all three of them crunch away in bliss, Kang Hyun decided that if they liked the shells so much, at least he could stop peeling and just keep serving. Before long, the plates and pan were wiped clean, proof of how much they had enjoyed every last shrimp. Mona and the little white wolf lay on the grass with round bellies, letting out lazy breaths as they praised how amazing the meal had been. As Kang Hyun started packing up his gear, Randolph stepped closer and said that after such a feast, he was duty-bound to teach him properly. Kang Hyun blinked in confusion for a moment, then remembered their promise about learning swordsmanship and nodded in understanding. Randolph flashed a big grin and told him not to worry, since they would take it slow and begin with easy basic training for his first day. Kang Hyun dropped face first onto the grass, his arm twitching as if even lifting his hand was too much work. Randolph sat beside Kang Hyun's shaking body, saying that his stamina was awful and that he had a long road ahead if he ever wanted to be a strong warrior. Kang Hyun could barely mumble that he was just a chef, not some fighter. The warrior frowned, amazed that Kang Hyun was this wiped out from just a 4-hour hike, and muttered that for someone so young his legs were surprisingly weak. Kang Hyun, half buried in the grass, could only call him crazy under his breath. The little white wolf shuffled closer and began gently licking Kang Hyun's aching leg, as if it could wash the pain away with its tiny tongue. Kang Hyun opened one eye in surprise, wondering if he was imagining it or if the places the pup licked really did feel a bit less sore. That cool numbness spread through his legs. It reminded him of rubbing on muscle relief gel, and his body finally loosened up enough for him to rest. Mona leaned in with fierce focus and started licking his other leg as well, yet to Kang Hyun it only felt wet and smelly, nothing like the pup's strange, cooling touch. Kang Hyun pushed himself up with a shaky smile and patted Mona on the head, saying he was grateful for the thought even as he tried to ease the embarrassed kid off his leg. Randolph rested the wooden sword on his shoulder and admitted that Kang Hyun's stubborn refusal to quit halfway was actually pretty admirable. Kang Hyun jerked upright in shock, stammering that he could not possibly accept a sword that Randolph had made for his own daughter. The warrior waved off Kang Hyun's worry and explained that his daughter was terrified of anything sharp, so the training sword had just been sitting around with no one to use it. Randolph clenched his gloved fist and roared that he would teach Kang Hyun everything he had never gotten to teach his daughter, swearing to shape him into the strongest warrior around. Kang Hyun stared at the wooden sword in his hands and sighed to himself, figuring he would just have to live with aching muscles for a while. Night fell around the roundhouse, warm light spilling from the windows while the garden outside glowed softly. Back in his kitchen, Kang Hyun worked a pan of pasta over the stove, while the white wolf pup peeked over the counter, eyes locked on the plate he was filling. As his stomach growled, Kang Hyun slumped over the counter and thought about how hard he had pushed himself that day, realizing it had been a long time since he had wanted a late-night snack this badly. While the pup waited happily beside its own plate, the little white wolf pup lit up as Kang Hyun slid a plate of pasta toward it, eyes sparkling like it had just won the lottery. Watching the pup inhale the noodles, Kang Hyun thought he had only tossed in some bacon and garlic, but clearly that simple mix was magic to his tiny guest. He took a bite with his chopsticks and smiled, deciding that as long as the pup was this happy, that was all he needed from the dish. Before he could grab another bite, the pup stared up at him beside its licked clean bowl, quietly asking if there might be just a little more. Kang Hyun dropped his chopsticks onto the plate with a sharp smack, deciding half-hearted leftovers were not enough for this late-night craving. He lunged for a bright yellow container from the shelf, already planning how to turn this simple snack into something worthy of a real meal. A stream of rich sauce splashed out as he moved, the smell already shifting from simple pasta to something deeper and more addictive. Moments the counter filled with plates of bright sauces and fresh toppings, a full late-night feast taking shape under his hands. Kang Hyun pressed his hands into the counter, staring down at the tiny dish of red sauce like it held the answer to everything. The whole counter was filled with sauces and spices, every plate a different test, and Kang Hyun hung over them, holding his breath, afraid this might still all be for nothing. His lips parted, a shaky breath slipping out as he tried to put into words the strange, sharp spark waking up on his tongue. Kang Hyun lifted his head, eyes wide as the flavors rushed in, and for the first time in so long he realized he could actually taste it.